Chapter 2484. Tianyazi had nothing to say about Luli. Of course, if it were anyone else who had been trapped for 10,000 years and thought that death was inevitable but was saved, that person would be grateful as long as the person was not born to be cruel and unscrupulous. Tianyazi liked Luli as well. What was more, Luli had climbed up step by step from the mortal world. Tianyazi admired that Luli could have such abilities in such a short time. What was more, Tianyazi had taught Luli two secret skills. Luli could be regarded as half an apprentice of Tianyazi. One of the two skills was not even passed on to his juniors. Luli got off the Godspeed boat and flew toward the northwest in a low profile. Tianyazi found out that to the west was the base camp of the Dragon Rebel Valley, and to the east was the base camp of the Hall of Watercloud. Luli was not very fast. He had been using the trace of Tao, but soon he was spotted by scouts from the Dragon Rebel race. "Who are you?" For scouts rushed over and surrounded Luli. Luli stood still and said calmly, "I am the emissary. I am here to make a deal with the Dragon Rebel race on behalf of my lord." Luli did not reveal that he was here. Instead, he used another identity. He was here to trade with the Dragon Rebel race on behalf of the Asmodean Lord for half the scripture. "You? Making a deal with the Dragon Rebel race?" The scouts sneered. Luli was only a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Did he represent some big shot? How big could a big shot that could send a messenger at the peak of the third tribulation be? One of them waved his hand and said, Go. Go back to where you came from. Don't pester me. This is not a place for you." The four didn't want to let Luli in. They didn't even want to report to their leader. It would be a dereliction of duty to let a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation in. Luli was angered. The four scouts were at the initial stage of the fourth tribulation. They were not a threat to him. He said coldly, "Who do you think you are? How dare you stop me? Tell your lord to come and see me." Courting death. The four were enraged. One of them stabbed at Luli's head with a sword. Luli didn't move away and just let the man do it. The sword reached between the man's eyebrows. Luli felt as if he was stabbing at a meteorite. That man was smashed away, spitting out blood. The other warriors were just about to take action when they saw that Luli's face was not injured at all. On the other hand, there was blood coming out of the corner of the mouth of the man who was slapped by Luli. The three warriors' expressions froze. Luli was not at the peak of the third tribulation, but a hidden, powerful warrior. The three of them pondered for a while. One of them said, after some consideration, "Sir, you know the Dragon Rebel clan isn't a place anyone can meet. Do you have any proof of identity?" Identification? Luli was taken aback. He did have a token from the Demon King, but could he just give it away? After thinking for a while, he said, "I don't have a token. Go and inform a member of the Dragon Rebel clan to come here." The scouts that had gone through 4 trials were still hesitating. The ring on Luli's hand glowed as the relic iron appeared. He asked coldly, "Is this enough? Saint weapon fragment?" The few of them looked at each other enviously. One of them nodded and said, "All right, I'll go and report it." "Sir, please wait for a moment." Luli stood there in silence. The scouts didn't dare to move at will. They waited on the side. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, a scout at the initial stage of the 5th tribulation came over with that scout. But he didn't look like a member of the Dragon Rebel clan. He didn't seem to have any special aura. "This is Patriarch Yang from the Purple Dipper Palace," the scout introduced. Luli cupped his fists and said, "Nice to meet you, Patriarch Yang." Patriarch Yang had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. He had been in a high position all year round. He was dignified and imposing. He looked at Luli coldly and asked, "Who are you? What family are you from? Why do you want to meet the Dragon Rebel clan?" Luli thought about it and said, "I am from the Een family of the chilly winterland. I have been ordered to make a deal with the Dragon Rebel clan. Patriarch Yang, please take me to the patriarchs of the Dragon Rebel clan. I will know when I meet them." Chilly winterland? Een family? Patriarch Yang didn't believe Luli. He snorted and said, "Just because you say you are from the Een family? What if you're a spy sent by the enemy? I cannot afford to offend the lords if I offend them. Do you have anything to prove your identity?" "Proof?" After some thoughts, Luli released the dragon manipulation skill at once. His powerful chi and blood spread out like a beast that had just woken up. The scouts that had gone through 4 trials, including the patriarch that had gone through 5 trials, found it hard to breathe. Seeing that they were on guard, Luli smiled and deactivated the dragon manipulation skill. His chi and energy returned to normal. Then he said, "Patriarch Yang, have you ever heard of the dragon manipulation skill?" Patriarch Yang was stunned. Then he shouted in surprise, "I didn't know that Emperor Purple had passed away. How come the dragon manipulation skill has a successor? You have achieved initial success in your mortal body, right?" Luli nodded. Patriarch Yang nodded without hesitation and said, "Come with me. But I hope you won't do anything rash. There are many powerful warriors in there, and a great patriarch of the Dragon Rebel clan is in charge. You know the consequences if you do anything rash." "I will not court death." Luli nodded and followed Patriarch Yang into the Chilian Peak. Gradually, they could see teams of warriors and camps along the way. Luli was not going to the battlefield. He was going to the rear, which was heavily guarded. Many warriors were patrolling. Many warriors had their eyes on Luli. But since Patriarch Yang was taking him along, nobody stopped them. The encampments were like hills with no end in sight. Luli did not dare to use psychic power. He glanced around casually and realized that there must be at least 100,000 warriors in the encampment. Luli flew on. Along the way, he saw many camps with dense warriors. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, there were fewer camps ahead, but the security was tighter. Patriarch Yang stopped. Several warriors flew over as well. Luli's eyes glowed as he glanced over. There were not many warriors in front of him, only 6. They looked no different from average human beings. But when Luli sensed closer, he could tell that they were different. It was as if they had a unique chi and energy that could make people feel suffocated. Luli had seen the pure heaven blood eagle race before, and he had the same feeling. Naturally, the 10 ancient races were different. Luli could tell from their temperament and the pride in their bones that they were different. "Patriarch Yang, what are you doing here? Who is he?" The leader was a warrior at the peak of the 4th tribulation. He was young. Even though he was wearing armor, he seemed to be a young master. He looked at Patriarch Yang with dissatisfaction. Patriarch Yang was at the peak of the 4th tribulation, but he was a member of the Dragon Rebel clan. Patriarch Yang was condescending to a warrior at the 5th tribulation. Chapter 2485. "Oh." Young Master Yin looked at Luli with suspicion. Luli released the dragon skill again after some thoughts. His powerful chi and blood spread out. As soon as Luli used the dragon skill, many psychic powers came over. But Luli put them away at once. He cupped his fists and said, "Young Master Yun, the dragon skill is unparalleled in the world. Apart from Emperor Z, nobody has ever mastered it. Is this enough to prove my identity?" Young Master Yun was still hesitant. Who could tell if this was the dragon skill? But young Master Yun could tell that Luli had achieved initial success in his immortal body. While young Master Yun was hesitating, he heard an old voice. "Dragon and I, Yun, bring him in." "Yes." Dragon and I, Yun, became respectful at once. He cupped his fists in front of his chest and then said to Luli, "Please come with me. Also, what is your name?" "Luli." Luli didn't hide his real name. He added, "I am sort of half a successor of Emperor Z." Luli didn't lie about this. He seemed to be honest. Dragon and I didn't ask any more questions. He led Luli to the camp. There were no guards outside the camp, but nobody dared to get close. Dragon and I stood at the gate while the others stayed outside. Dragon and I said to Luli, "It will be our patriarch Ping who will meet you later. I hope you can show some respect to our patriarch." Luli nodded. Dragon and I led Luli in. As soon as they went in, Luli found himself in a black hall. An old man in a black robe was sitting in the hall. He was calm and composed, and he didn't have a strong chi and energy. That being said, he made Luli feel pressured when he glanced at Luli. This man was a warrior of the 5th tribulation. It was said that when the Dragon and I released their skills, their abilities could be increased by 10 times. Therefore, this man was not to be underestimated. What was more, This man was a patriarch of the Luling family. Luli could not afford to be careless. He bowed with respect and said, I am Luli. Nice to meet you, Patriarch Ping. Good. Elder Ping nodded slightly and asked curiously, Emperor Z was killed by Yang Di and died. It is said that his head has not been retrieved until now. Where did you learn the dragon weaving skill? Luli thought about it and decided to tell the truth. Emperor Z was indeed killed, but his body flew away. By chance, I found Emperor Z's body. Of course, it has already been returned to the Yin clan. The dragon weaving art was comprehended from the purple Thearcha's body. I see. Elder Ping nodded slightly. Then he asked, Then why did you come to the Dragon Rebel clan? I remembered that we don't have any relationship with the Yin family. Moreover, what kind of deal can the Yin family make with us now? Elder Ping's tone was very calm, but the arrogance in his bones was unmistakable. The Dragon Rebel clan was a super powerful clan that had existed for millions of years. It was one of the 10 clans that had dominated this continent since ancient times. On the other hand, the Yin clan had only risen for a short period of time. Once the Purple the Arch died, the Yin clan declined. The fact that the Dragon Rebel clan could survive was because Emperor Z had some ties with several emperors at the chilly winter continent. Otherwise, the Dragon Rebel clan would have been wiped out. In other words, the Yin family was not at the same level as the Dragon Rebel clan. The Yin family was at the chilly winter continent. How could they have anything to do with the Dragon Rebel clan? Luli took out a yellow bead and handed it to Patriarch Ping. He had already taken out the scripture from the bead. The Devil King said that as long as the bead was presented, the Dragon Rebel clan would make a deal. Luli handed it over and said, Patriarch Ping, take a look at this bead. The one who asked me to do the deal said that as long as I present the bead, your family will make a deal with me. Oh, Patriarch Ping and the Dragon Rebel clan were surprised. Patriarch Ping picked up the bead with curiosity and took a look but didn't see anything different. Patriarch Ping thought about it and poured in divine energy. The bead glowed and some vague divine patterns emerged. Patriarch Ping's eyes glowed. He stared at the patterns on the bead carefully. After a while, he put on a solemn expression. He nodded and said, I don't know the inside story, but this bead does have something to do with our family. There is a special mark of our family on the bead. Phew, Luli was relieved. The Devil King didn't lie to him. The deal should be settled. Now it was time to find Lu Ling. He didn't dare to ask rashly. He planned to probe in a low-key manner. Patriarch Ping thought about it and said, You are Luli, right? I will send someone to escort you back to the Dragon Rebel Valley. I don't know the inside story, and I need other patriarchs of our family to talk to you. Okay. Luli nodded and bowed. Thank you, Patriarch Ping. Dragon Rebel Cloud. Patriarch Ping threw a token to Lu Li and ordered, Escort Lu Li back to the Dragon Rebel Valley with someone. Do not let anything happen on the way. If anything goes wrong, just ask me. Yes. Dragon Rebel Cloud bowed and left with Lu Li. When they came out, Dragon Rebel Cloud was much friendlier. He cupped his fists and said, Young Master Lu, we cannot open the space portal here, so we will take a battleship back. I will go and make some arrangements. We will depart in one day. How about you take a rest? Okay. Luli nodded. His attitude was good as well. He cupped his fists and said, Thank you, young Master Yin. Don't call me young Master Yin. Dragon Rebel Cloud was even more amiable now. He said, I'm only a disciple of a branch of the family. I am not a young master. Just call me Dragon Rebel Cloud. Then I will call you Brother Yin. Luli didn't wear a mask. His vital energy and appearance were young. Dragon Rebel Cloud was not that young. He must be older than Luli. Dragon Rebel Cloud showed Luli to a camp. Luli settled down in there. As soon as he went in, he heard a voice. Little Lu, now that you have made the arrangements, I will leave now. Remember, when you are done, come to the Great Buddha Mountain and find me. Luli nodded and cupped his fists toward Tian Yazi. Tian Yazi didn't send any more messages. He must have flown away on the Godspeed boat. Luli sat down with his legs crossed and waited quietly. There were so many powerful warriors here that he didn't dare to probe around. From a distance came some noises of explosion. Clearly, the battle was still going on. But both sides must be restraining themselves. Not all the armies were mobilized, only a small part of them. A day passed in a flash. Dragon Rebel Cloud came. Luli went with him. Dragon Rebel Cloud didn't take out his battleship. Instead, he led the 50 warriors and Luli to the west in a low-key manner. Luli, it is a bit messy here. There are more enemy scouts. Dragon Rebel Cloud explained to Luli in a low voice. We will leave this area first in case the enemies can detect us and ambush us. When we are out of this area, we will take a battleship and leave. Okay, I will do as you say. Luli nodded. Dragon Rebel Cloud must have come and gone back to the Dragon Rebel Valley often. They were experienced. Luli was in the dark. Naturally, he had to go with Dragon Rebel Cloud. Don't worry. Chapter 2486. Luli and the others left the Chilean peak quietly. They traveled for several hours in a low-key manner and went past several cities before they took out a battleship. The battleship was not large, but it was faster than average battleships. Of course, it was not as fast as the godboat. On the battlefield, Luli asked, "Aren't these areas all under the influence of the Dragon Rebel race? Why don't we teleport away from the cities? Isn't it faster that way?" "It is closed," Dragon Rebel Yun said with a bitter smile. "Because we didn't close the teleportation formations, warriors of the Hall of Water Cloud sneaked into the Dragon Rebel territory. They burned, killed, looted, and destroyed. Many died. Of course, we have done the same thing. The teleportation formations in the other areas are all closed. In this way, even if enemies sneak in, we can capture them after we get the information." "I see." Luli nodded and asked, "How long will it take to get to the Dragon Rebel Valley?" "Not long," Dragon Rebel Yin said with a smile. "If everything goes well, half a month will be enough. It won't take long." For Dragon Rebel Yin, a month was just a blink of an eye. Luli had been in closed-door cultivation for so many times that half a month was a short time for him. Therefore, he didn't worry too much. The battleship flew away. The dozens of warriors divided into two groups and took turns to stand guard on the deck. Not all of the 50 warriors were from the Dragon Rebel race. Only 10 of them were from the Dragon Rebel race, and the rest were affiliated warriors of the Dragon Rebel race. Most of the 50 were warriors of the Fourth Tribulation, and many of them were at the peak. There were 2 warriors of the Fifth Tribulation here, and they were at the middle stage. Patriarch Ping thought highly of Luli. The battleship moved forward steadily. Dragon Rebel Yun invited Luli into a luxurious cabin with great enthusiasm. Clearly, Dragon Rebel Yun was interested in Luli. After all, Luli was the successor of Emperor Z. How could he make a deal with the Dragon Rebel family? Patriarch Ping thought highly of Luli. Deep down, he still looked down on Luli. That being said, he was interested in Luli. There was a maid in the cabin. Did Dragon Rebel Yun put her in his interspatial artifact all the time? The maid knelt on the ground and made tea for them. After the tea was brewed, Dragon and I Yun said with a smile, "Luli, try the dragon tongue orchid that is unique to the Dragon Rebel race. Only we have this tea. It is the best tea." Luli sniffed it and immediately felt a warm current flowing through his body. It was very comfortable. After he took a sip, his mouth was filled with fragrance. His whole body felt like it was soaking in a hot spring. It was extremely comfortable. Good stuff. He took a few sips and savored the aftertaste for the time it took for an incense stick to burn before he opened his eyes. He felt that his soul seemed to have grown. He nodded and said, "This is indeed a top-grade tea. It's something that can't be bought with money." "Of course," Dragon and I Yin said proudly. "We won't sell this tea for even one tael. Many people offer a high price, but they couldn't buy it. We just drink it ourselves and give some to our friends. When you're done with your business, I'll give you half a caddy. I don't have any more." "Ha ha ha." Luli laughed out loud. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Brother Yin. You have reached the peak of the Fourth Tribulation at such a young age. I think you will reach the Fifth Tribulation soon. In the future, you will become a famous warrior of the Flying Fire Continent." 5 calamities? Easier said than done. Dragon and I Yun sighed. Noticing the surprise in Lu Li's eyes, Dragon and I Yun explained, "The Dragon Rebel race is a special race. After we awaken our special skills, our abilities can soar. The lower our rank, the more powerful our abilities will be. For example, our abilities can be increased by 10 times. God has been kind to us, but God has opened a door for us but closed a window. It is extremely difficult for us to make breakthroughs. Countless people are stuck at the bottleneck. Otherwise, we would have unified the Flying Fire continent a long time ago." "That's true," Luli nodded. The special skills of the Dragon Rebel race were amazing. If there were more lords of the Dragon Rebel race, their abilities could be multiplied and they could sweep across the Flying Fire continent. Dragon and I Yin took a sip and asked with curiosity, "Luli, are you really here to trade on behalf of the Yin family? But I don't understand. What does the Yin family have to trade with us?" This was something that Dragon and I Yin could not figure out. That was why he asked so abruptly. Luli could not answer this question. He smiled a mysterious smile and said, "I don't know the details. I'm only here under orders." "Then why are you here?" Dragon and I Yin went straight to the point. This question was hurtful. Why did Dragon and I Yin send Luli, a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation? Even if Luli had a minor success in his immortal body and the dragon skill, he was still not strong enough. The Yin family also had powerful warriors of the Lord Realm. Wasn't Dragon and I Yin afraid that Luli would be killed on the way? "The Silver Flame Sea," Luli explained with a smile. If young Emperor knew that the higher-ups of the Yin family had come to the Silver Flame Sea, do you think he would sit by and do nothing? This was a convincing reason. Dragon and I Yin believed it. Luli thought about it for a while. His eyes glowed. He said casually, "Actually, there's another reason why I am here." Dragon and I Yin raised his eyebrows and asked, "Oh, what is it?" "I know a young lady of your family." Luli said casually, "I think the Yin family sent me here so that I can communicate better with your family." A young lady? Dragon and I Yin was even more surprised. Young ladies of the Dragon Rebel race rarely went out, and they would never marry outsiders. Judging from Luli's tone, he seemed to be familiar with this young lady. This was the first time Luli had come to the Flying Fire continent. How is it possible? Dragon and I Yin asked at once. "Tell me about it. I know all the young ladies of the family." "Who do you know?" Luli was a bit excited, but he pretended to be calm. He said, "Dragon Rebel Antelope." "Dragon Rebel Antelope?" Dragon and I Yin was confused. He thought about it and said, "There is no such name. Did you get it wrong?" "No." Luli's heart skipped a beat. He had asked someone from the Palace of Flying Smoke, and they said there was no such name. Was there something wrong? Was Lu Ling not from the Dragon Rebel race? Or was she not called that? Luli didn't have time to think. He took out Lu Ling's portrait and handed it over. "Take a closer look." It is impossible. Many years had passed, but Luli believed that Lu Ling's looks hadn't changed much. If she was in the Dragon Rebel race, Dragon and I Yin would have seen her. This person, Dragon and I Yin thought to himself while looking at the portrait. Luli was nervous as well. After a while, Dragon and I Yin shook his head and said, "I think I have seen her somewhere. But she is not a young lady of the Dragon Rebel race. She is elegant and pretty. If she is a young lady of our race, I will know her." Boom! It was like a bolt from the blue. Luli trembled. Even though Dragon and I Yin was not a young master of the immediate Dragon Rebel family, he must be a young master of a collateral branch. A warrior at the peak of the fourth tribulation must be somebody in the Dragon Rebel family. Of course, Dragon Rebel family would know a pretty young lady of the family. Lu Ling's temperament was special. Usually, people would be impressed by her at first glance. Chapter 2487. He seemed to have seen her somewhere. This gave Lu Li a glimmer of hope. He wasn't completely hopeless. He took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice, "Brother Yun, try to recall carefully. Where have you seen this person before? She is very important to me." "Oh, young Master Lu, this is the girl you like?" Dragon and I Yun smiled and then began to think. He frowned as if he was trying to recall. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, he slapped his thigh and said, "I remember. I've seen this person in the clan. It seems that he was brought to the back mountain by an elder. I only took a glance, but I haven't seen him since. Luli was excited. He asked, is the back of the mountain an important place for the Dragon Rebel race? Yes. Dragon and I nodded after a moment of hesitation. Our family patriarch, great patriarch, and other patriarchs all live there. People call it the Dragon Mountain. Is there such a possibility? Luli asked with a frown. She was taken to the back of the mountain and has been cultivating there. She never came out. So you don't know her? I don't know. Dragon and I shrugged and said, we are not qualified to go to the back of the mountain. Nobody can go there apart from patriarchs. Our family rules are very strict. Okay, I see. Luli nodded and said no more. It was pointless to ask Dragon and I about this. Asking more would only make him suspicious. Luli nodded and said, I will ask your patriarch later. She once saved my life. I want to thank her. Okay, you can ask our patriarch later. Dragon and I didn't ask any more questions. He began to talk about other things. Luli changed the subject and asked about the recent scuffle between the Dragon Rebel race and the other forces. It was not good. Not only the Dragon Rebel race, but the four forces were all in a bad situation. The four great powers were all 27 great powers, and they all had deep foundations. It was too difficult to destroy the other side, so they could only continue the stalemate. The result of the stalemate was more and more deaths. After so many years, the four families had all suffered great losses. Even though they were not seriously hurt, they were miserable. Therefore, in recent years, the various clans rarely sent out experts to battle. Basically, it was the younger generation who fought. This way, the younger generation could quickly increase their battle prowess, and they could also unearth good seedlings from the younger generation and nurture them. The Dragon Rebel clan had 5 youngsters in recent years, 3 men and 2 women. All of them had broken through the 5th tribulation. If he didn't die prematurely, he would definitely become a high-level member of the Dragon Rebel clan and one of the most influential figures on the Flying Fire continent. Dragon and I didn't say what was inside the entrance that the 4 forces were fighting over. He only said it was a peerless treasure land. If any great faction managed to obtain this entrance, their overall strength would increase by several folds in less than 10,000 years. It would not be difficult for them to dominate the Flying Fire continent in one go. What was inside this peerless treasure land? Luli didn't ask more questions. He knew that even the Dragon Rebel Cloud didn't know. This must be a top secret among the 4 forces. None of the 4 major powers were willing to let the news spread, as it would attract even more powers to fight over it. Oh, right. Luli asked a question out of curiosity. Brother Yun, is it true that young ladies of the Dragon Rebel race cannot marry out? No. Dragon Rebel Cloud gave a firm answer. He added after a pause, but if there's a powerful warrior marrying into our family, the family will consider it. But the powerful warrior must stay with us. Marrying into our family. Luli touched his nose in embarrassment. Seeing Li's expression, Dragon Rebel Cloud said with a smile, Young Master Lu, you want to marry that young lady of our family? Ha, ha, ha. If you don't marry into our family, then don't even think about it. This is the rule of our family. For millions of years, we have never violated it. Marry? Luli forced a smile. Lu Ling was his sister. Even though she was not his biological sister, she was the closest person to Li. How could he marry her? Not to mention marrying into the Dragon Rebel race. That being said, the rules of the Dragon Rebel race were strict. If Lu Ling was really with the Dragon Rebel race, and he wanted to bring her back to the second heaven, it would be as difficult as climbing up to the sky. How could he fight against the entire Dragon Rebel race by himself? Unless he could reach the Emperor realm, it was impossible. Right? On this thought, Luli asked with curiosity, Brother Yun, is there any Emperor realm warrior in the Dragon Rebel race? You don't know this? Dragon Rebel Cloud rolled his eyes and said, This is public information. The Flying Fire continent and even the entire third heaven know about it. Apart from our founding progenitor, no one else has reached the Emperor realm. But because of the special nature of our race, when our powerful warriors reach the Emperor realm, They can be as powerful as Emperor Realm warriors. Do you understand? Yes. Lu Li's mind was weighed down. The Dragon Rebel race was a large family. There must be more than one Emperor Realm warrior. If there were 2 or 3 Emperor Realm warriors, then there would be 2 or 3 powerful warriors that could fight against Emperor Realm warriors. How could one man challenge such a huge family? Even reaching the Emperor Realm would be difficult. We will see. Lu Li sighed, but he was not upset. He was just a young man from the mortal world. Many would not believe that he could reach the flying fire continent. Even Tian Yazi was shocked. If he could do something so difficult, then it was not impossible for him to take Lu Ling away. Lu Li could only comfort himself in this way. After a while, Lu Li went back to his own cabin. He had finished what he wanted to say. He was not fully recovered, so he needed to rest for a while. It would take him more than half a month to get to the Dragon Rebel Valley. He could use this time to recover. Lu Li's vitality was coming back as he consumed more and more elixirs. The elixirs were digested like water. His abilities were recovering quickly, but his vitality was damaged. It would take him several months to recover completely. Time flew by quickly. It was a peaceful journey. This was not the first time that Dragon Rebel Cloud and the others had come and gone from the Dragon Rebel Valley. The route they chose was discreet. Of course, this was the territory of the Dragon Rebel race. The teleportation formations were closed. It would be difficult for warriors from the Hall of Water Cloud to come in. Half a month had passed. Dragon Rebel Cloud and the others were relieved. They were about to enter the Dragon Rebel territory. No matter how bold their enemies were, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. What was more, they were not important people. Why would they ambush them? Swish, however, an hour later, when the battleship passed by a valley, there was a ray of sword light. Even though Lu Li and the others noticed it at once, the ray of sword light still landed on the battleship. Boom! The strong force smashed the battleship into dust. Lu Li and the others flew out. 2 of them were hurt by the sword light, but not too badly. Ha ha ha! A cold and gloomy laugh came out. Then 10 people flew out from the valley. Lu Li, Dragon and Yun, and the others were taken aback when they saw them. The 10 were all warriors of the 5th Tribulation, and one of them was at the peak of the 5th Tribulation. Shui Ruiyang. Dragon Rebel Cloud's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. He recognized the warrior at the peak of the 5th Tribulation. He didn't expect that someone from the Hall of Water Cloud was here, and they were here to kill him. Chapter 2488. There were 50 warriors of the Dragon Rebel race. Of the 10, only Dragon Rebel race was at the peak of the 4th Tribulation. When Dragon Rebel race released the Dragon Reverse Blood Seal, he was as strong as the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation. The other 2 warriors were at the later stage of the 4th Tribulation. When they released the Dragon Reverse Blood Seal, they were as strong as those at the initial stage of the 5th Tribulation. The other 2 were at the later stage and the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation. The Dragon Rebel race had more people, but their comprehensive abilities were much weaker. Shui Ruiyang was a famous warrior of the Hall of Water Cloud. Shui Ruiyang alone could defeat the 2 warriors of the 5th Tribulation. Dragon Rebel race was conceited, but he was not so arrogant that he could fight several warriors of the 5th Tribulation on his own. Therefore, he figured out the situation in an instant. A glint of ruthlessness rose in his eyes. Brother Lu, I will let the Dragon Rebel Island take you away. We will cover your retreat. His mission was to escort Lu Li to the Dragon Rebel Valley. Nothing could happen to Lu Li. It would be difficult to run separately. The only way out was to let Lu Li go, and they would cover his retreat. There was an 80% chance that they would die while covering Lu Li's retreat. But if they ran separately, Lu Li was more likely to die. Dragon Rebel race had to risk his life. The Dragon Rebel race had strict rules. If Dragon Rebel race could not protect Lu Li, he would be punished severely even if he could go back. He would never be put in an important position again. Lu Li didn't expect that someone would try to kill him on the way. Hearing Dragon Rebel race's words, Lu Li had a better impression of the latter. Dragon Rebel race was arrogant and looked down on Lu Li, but he was a man of brotherhood. to let Luli go first while he covered Luli was courting death. Luli glanced over the 10 warriors in front of him. One was at the peak of the 5th tribulation, one was at the later stage, for we're at the middle stage, and the rest were at the initial stage. In a split second, Luli made up his mind. He would stay and fight. He hadn't used the law of divine sound yet, and he wanted to see its power. Also, Tianyazi had taught him 2 secret skills. One was at the initial stage, and the other was at the initial stage. Luli was more confident. The initial stage of the divine body had increased his defensive abilities. If he couldn't make it, he could find a way to fly through the hollow and escape. Presumably, Dragon and Yun and the others would buy him some time. This time, they were not only here to trade with the Dragon Rebel race. They were here to find Lu Ling. Therefore, it was necessary for him to build a good relationship with the Dragon Rebel clan so that they would value him more. Otherwise, he might not even be able to meet Lu Ling. He immediately transmitted his voice. Brother Yun, you, and 2 5th Tribulation experts will deal with that 5th Tribulation pinnacle Shui Rion. Have 2 late-stage 4th Tribulation experts from your clan stall that 5th Tribulation expert. Leave the rest to me. I'm confident in killing them. Huh. Dragon and Yun didn't expect that not only did Luli not leave, but he also wanted to fight. Most importantly, he actually used a commanding tone, and he even boasted shamelessly about how many 5 tribulations he could kill, a peak 3rd tribulation. So what if he had a small success divine physique? Other than having a strong defense, how strong could his combat power be? He turned around and looked into Lu Li's eyes. He saw the coldness in Lu Li's eyes and the glow of confidence on his face. Somehow, at this moment, he trusted Lu Li. Awaken! Dragon and Ian shouted. A silver glare came out from his body. Then, silver dragon scales grew out from many parts of his body. There was a dragon-shaped tattoo on his forehead, which was quite strange. After the reverse dragon blood seal was awakened, Dragon and Yun's chi and energy were 10 times stronger. A surge of energy that belonged to an ancient beast spread out from him. There was a faint silver glare in his eyes, which was quite intimidating. Luli also noticed that Dragon and Yun's hands had changed into silver dragon claws, similar to his bloodline skill. But his claws were more frightening. Just one look at them would make people's hearts tremble. Awaken! The other 9 Dragon Rebel Clan warriors awakened the reverse dragon blood seal. Dragon and Yun and the 2 5th Tribulation warriors had charged over, targeting Shui Rion. Charge! The dozens of warriors charged over as well. There was a great disparity in strength. They had no other choice but to fight to the death. Over the years, the hatred between the Dragon Rebel clan and the Watercloud Hall had deepened. Both sides were enraged. Ha ha ha! Shui Ruiyang and the others looked at the incoming warriors with ridicule. In their eyes, they were enjoying themselves as if they were cats catching mice. Even though there were more warriors, they were not stressed at all. It was only a matter of time before they were killed. Ha ha! Shui Ruiyang turned around and dashed into the distance. Since the 2 5th Tribulation warriors and Dragon and Yun were going to attack him together, he was more than happy to oblige. He was confident that he could stall the 3 of them. When the 9 of them finished off the rest, it would be a piece of cake to kill Dragon and Yun and the other 2. He had lured the 3 away. The smiles in the eyes of the 9 grew. Even though there were dozens of warriors in the eyes of the 9, apart from the 2 at the later stage of the 4th tribulation, the others were not a threat. Luli rushed over with the team. A soft sword appeared in his hand. It was not a powerful artifact, but it was suitable for releasing the law of divine sound. Luli targeted a warrior at the initial stage of the 5th tribulation, ready to test his skills. Since he had mastered the law of divine sound, he hadn't used it yet. He followed the 2 Dragon Rebel Clan warriors and approached the warrior at the initial stage of the 5th tribulation. That warrior didn't even look at Luli. Even though Luli was not slower than warriors of the Dragon Rebel Clan, he was only at the peak of the 3rd tribulation and he was young. This was not a lie. Boom, boom. That warrior launched an attack. The 2 Dragon Rebel Clan warriors were smashed away. They were only at the middle stage of the 4th tribulation. After releasing the Dragon Rebel Blood Seal, they could only be as strong as warriors at the peak of the Fourth Tribulation. There was a huge gap between them and warriors at the Fifth Tribulation. Clank, clank, the soft sword in Lu Li's hand began to shake like the tongue of a viper. An invisible ripple spread out in space. A strange sound came out. At that moment, people with a radius of more than 1,000 feet around Lu Li paused for a moment. The warrior at the initial stage of the Fifth Tribulation in front of Lu Li turned pale as soon as he heard the sound. Then, he rolled around in midair with his hands over his head. "Ah!" he screamed. At that moment, he felt hundreds of millions of steel needles were stabbing into his soul. He also heard some sonic booms in his soul. His soul was about to explode. Even though he had the protection of his enchanted soul, he could not defend himself. He rolled around and screamed in pain. At this moment, the entire crowd suddenly quieted down. They looked at the martial artist who was rolling on the ground while holding his head in his hands. Lu Li didn't attack with the soft sword in his hand. He just shook it, making a sound like a tsunami. How could the sound be so magical? How could it make a warrior at the Fifth Tribulation suffer like this? More importantly, Lu Li was at the peak of the Third Tribulation. For them, warriors at the peak of the Third Tribulation were as puny as an ant. Now, that puny ant just shook his arm and a dragon was in so much pain. Buzzing, Lu Li took out the relic iron and poured divine energy into it. Then, he smashed at the head of the warrior at the Fifth Tribulation. This Fifth Tribulation warrior was quite strong in defense. Lu Li smashed at him for 3 times before the warrior's head exploded and his body fell to the ground. What? Chapter 2489. As a matter of fact, Lu Li himself was confused. He didn't know that the law of divine sound could be this powerful. Of course, his soul energy had been transformed into soul needles, which had increased the power of his soul attacks. That might have something to do with it. This warrior of the Fifth Tribulation had a 6th rank enchanted soul, which was of a low level. Of course, this patriarch was only at the initial stage of the Fifth Tribulation and had just made the breakthrough. He might not be valued at the Hall of Watercloud. All in all, the law of divine sound had helped Lu Li kill a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible for Lu Li to kill a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation with the relic iron. Not even a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation would have a chance to get close to him, let alone 3 attacks. That warrior of the Fifth Tribulation was defenseless under the soul attack. His defensive ability was at its lowest. It took Lu Li 3 attacks to kill him. Warriors of the Fifth Tribulation were powerful. Lu Li reacted quickly. He only paused for a moment before he dashed toward a warrior at the initial stage of the Fifth Tribulation. He waved the soft sword in his hand, and invisible ripples spread out. The attacks of the divine, sound nomological laws were not indiscriminate. The divine sound soul waves spread out in a fan shape, not in all directions. This was something Lu Li felt regretful about. But there were teammates around. If they were attacked indiscriminately, they would be attacked as well. There were pros and cons to this. The warrior of the Fifth Tribulation who was attacked by Lu Li hugged his head and rolled around. Seeing that others were still in a daze, Lu Li flew into a rage and yelled, "What are you waiting for? Attack! Charge!" Everyone came back to their senses. Invigorated, they began to attack with all their might. Lu Li could defeat a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation so easily, which gave them hope. Maybe this time, not only would they survive, but they could win a great victory. Kill that punk. The warrior at the later stage of the Fifth Tribulation from the Hall of Watercloud yelled. Holding a huge axe, he shouted, "Those who stand in my way will die." His strength did not scare anyone away. Instead, 2 warriors at the later stage of the Fourth Tribulation of the Dragon Rebel race dashed toward him with no regard for their lives. More than a dozen other warriors were rushing toward him. They knew very well that they must create a chance for Lu Li. They must stall this warrior of the Fifth Tribulation. Only when Lu Li could kill the other warriors of the Fifth Tribulation could they have a chance of winning. Buzzing, on the other side, Lu Li let out the daughter of Saint King. Still, he did not use the godly iron to attack. His divine energy, was abundant at the moment, but he did not want to reap the benefits of a weak foundation. At that time, his body would not have a trace of divine power, and his battle prowess would be greatly reduced. The sacred emperor's daughter's attack power was not bad. At this moment, the 5 tribulation expert soul was being attacked by billions of soul needles. For a short period of time, this person could not care about what was happening in the outside world. Even if someone cut off his flesh piece by piece, he probably would not care. Bang, bang, bang. Under Lu Li's instruction, Blood Fairy grabbed the man's neck with one hand and slapped his head with the other. Bang, 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 bang. The sacred emperor's daughter struck out dozens of times in an instant, and that person's head finally burst open. Before he died, he seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. He raised his fist and punched the sacred emperor's daughter. Boom! The holy emperor's daughter and the man were both sent flying. The holy emperor's daughter was fine, but the man's head was broken and his soul was shattered. He let out a wretched cry before falling to the ground. Two fifth tribulation experts had been killed in such a short time. This greatly boosted the morale of the people in the Dragon Rebel Valley. That said, the cultivators from Watercloud Palace were also going all out. By then, 7 or 8 of their cultivators had already been killed. That warrior at the later stage of the 5th Tribulation Realm wanted to kill Lu Li very much, but he was stopped by 2 warriors of the Dragon Rebel race. After the Dragon Rebel race awakened the Dragon Blood Seal, not only were their abilities enhanced, but their defensive abilities were also horrifying. Although he had injured 2 of them, he was unable to kill them. He had killed 2, but there were still more than a dozen people surrounding him. He could not break through the encirclement to attack Lu Li. Whoosh, that voice came again. Another warrior had been hit. Lu Li's targets were all at the initial stage of the 5th Tribulation. As soon as he released the power, that warrior would be hit immediately and could not survive. Lu Li left that warrior to Blood Fairy and other warriors nearby after he was hit. Lu Li left him a Blood Fairy to deal with. His body flashed like a mad dragon, rushing towards the others. Wow, the voice came again and again. Lu Li had released the Law of Sound twice. 2 warriors had been hit, including the 2 he killed earlier. Now, 4 warriors at the initial stage of the 5th Tribulation had been hit. 2 of them had been killed, and the 3rd one was almost finished. Lu Li winked at several of them, and they began to attack the one who had been hit. Lu Li dashed toward a warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation. If the Law of Sound could work on a warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation, then the battle would be won. The warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation was fighting against 4 or 5 warriors. He had already killed 2. Seeing that Lu Li was coming, the warrior panicked. He wanted to run away, but the warriors nearby would not let him go. Out of my way! Lu Li released the Law of Sound as he dashed over. An invisible wave spread out like waves in a raging sea. It was so fast that the warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation could not dodge it. The wave surged in. Hundreds of millions of needles swarmed toward that warrior's soul. That warrior's enchanted soul was of the 7th rank. He managed to fend off some of the needles, but there were too many of them. Soon, that warrior was hit as well. Nice! Lu Li's soft sword kept shaking. The Law of Sound came in waves, and the further it went, the more horrifying it would be. That warrior was still struggling. After the time for a few breaths, he could not stand it anymore. He rolled on the ground, holding his head. It's over. We won. When the warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation was hit, one side's heart sank while the other sides were overjoyed. If Lu Li could defeat one warrior, then he could defeat the second. When all the warriors at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation were killed, there would be only Shui Riyang and the warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation left. There were so many warriors here, including Dragon and I Yun and 2 warriors at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation. Lu Li was a variable. They could not gain any advantage. The fight could not go on for too long. If it went on for too long, not even Shui Riyang would be able to run away, which would be a great loss. There's only one way out. The warrior at the middle stage of the 5th Tribulation said with determination. He had to break through the encirclement at the risk of getting injured. He had to approach Lu Li as fast as he could and kill him. He had an 8th rank enchanted soul to protect his soul. He didn't think Lu Li's soul attack could hurt him. As long as he could get closer, he was sure that he could kill Lu Li in one move. What a joke. If he could not kill a warrior at the peak of the 3rd tribulation, then he could go home and farm. Soon, another warrior at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation was hit. Warriors at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation all had 7th rank enchanted souls. They could not stand Lu Li's sound. Roar! The warrior at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation knew he could not let this go on. He shouted. After he fended off 2 attacks, he released a powerful one that smashed several warriors away. Go to hell. He didn't even have time to wipe off the blood on the corner of his mouth. He didn't care about his broken armor. He vanished in midair, and in the next second, he had reached Lu Li. Chapter 2490. Lu Li had noticed this warrior a while ago, but he was too close. What could he do? Unless he stopped attacking other warriors of the 5th tribulation, he would not be able to dodge. Lu Li was prepared. Now that the warrior was coming, there was no way for him to dodge. He had to take it head on. Lu Li wanted to try the power of the heaven armor, as well to see how strong his defense was. He released the dragon weaving skill at once. At the same time, he mobilized some invisible energy to his back and released the heaven armor. He had only achieved initial success in the heaven armor, so he could only build 1 layer of defense. If he could master it, he would have 3 layers of defense, which would be more powerful. Burning blood skill. He also used the first bloodline skill he had. The bloodline skills were not powerful at the moment, but it would be good if he could improve them. Boom! With a loud noise, Lu Li was smashed away. His back was covered in blood, and some of his bones were broken. He was smashed into a mountain in front of him. And not dead. Lu Li at the later stage of the 5th tribulation used psychic power to check. He had the urge to spit out blood. His powerful move could not kill a warrior at the peak of the 3rd tribulation. What was wrong with the world? Was this not the world he knew? How could a warrior at the peak of the 3rd tribulation be so powerful? Whoosh! He knew he didn't have a second chance. Those from the Dragon Rebel clan were charging at him. He had just taken 2 attacks head-on and was injured. If the fight dragged on, the consequences would be unpredictable. Boom! Another warrior at the middle stage of the 4th tribulation was killed. Lu Li dashed out from the mountain. He took 2 healing pellets and dashed toward another warrior at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation in a blur. Soon, the warrior at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation was affected by the law of sound. Lu Li's mouth was covered in blood and his back was bleeding. His facial muscles were twisted because of the pain, but he kept on attacking without any hesitation. He knew that every minute and every second was very important to them. Only by killing all the warriors at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation could they win the fight and survive. All the warriors at the initial stage of the 5th tribulation were dead. 2 of the warriors at the middle stage of the 5th tribulation were killed as well. The other 2 were panicking. Although they had killed a total of 13 people, what was the point of that? Lu Li would be here soon. By then, none of them would be able to survive. Retreat. The warrior at the later stage of the 5th tribulation of the Hall of Watercloud made up his mind and shouted. He had missed the best chance by failing to kill Lu Li. Now, the Dragon Rebel race would not give him another chance. If he still didn't retreat, the remaining 2 mid-stage 5th tribulation cultivators would also die. If everyone attacked him together, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. He roared and attacked with all his might for a few rounds before turning into a shadow. At the same time, he let out a shrill cry and flew away without looking back. The other 2 mid-stage 5th tribulation cultivators were overjoyed. After withstanding 2 attacks, they quickly flew away. Shui Ruyang, who was fighting against Dragon and Ai Yun and the other 2 people in the distance, looked shocked. It was easy for him to hold up Dragon and Ai Yun and the other 2. He had thought that the other side would also have an easy time, but he didn't expect that the other side had sent a signal to retreat. What went wrong? Shui Ruyang couldn't figure it out. Could it be that some experts of the Dragon Rebel clan happened to be passing by? Otherwise, how could they have evacuated? No matter what, Since the other side had retreated, how could Shui Ruiyang continue to fight? It was easy for a warrior at the peak of the fifth tribulation to leave. Dragon and I Yun and the others could not stop him. Shui Ruiyang released a powerful attack that forced the three of them to retreat. Then, he flew away in a blur. Let's go. Dragon and I Yun and the others were shocked. Shui Ruiyang had run away? Was that whistle a signal to retreat? The three of them didn't think too much. They flew toward Lu Li. The three of them flew over quickly. They saw that more than a dozen people were dead, and there was not a single piece of flesh on Lu Li's back that was unharmed. All his ribs were broken, and his internal organs were crushed. The three of them were a bit distressed. However, when the three of them saw 6 experts who had gone through the 5 culpa tests on the enemy's side, they were all shocked. Dragon and I Yun exchanged a look with a member of the Dragon Rebel clan. That man sent a voice transmission to Dragon and I Yun quickly. Dragon and I Yun looked even more shocked. The successor of Emperor Z was indeed extraordinary. He had killed so many warriors of the 5th tribulation when he was at the peak of the 3rd tribulation. Many people would not believe it when the news spread out. That being said, Dragon and I Yun was not as shocked when he remembered that Lu Li used soul attacks. Many powerful warriors that cultivated soul skills didn't care much about realms. There was a warrior at the initial stage of the 5th tribulation at the Hall of Watercloud. He was proficient in soul skills, and he could challenge a lord of the 6th tribulation at the 5th tribulation realm. What made Dragon and I Yun exclaim was that Lu Li could survive one strike from a warrior at the later stage of the 5th tribulation. Was an immortal body that powerful? Let's go. This was not the time to talk about this. Dragon and I Yun took out a battleship, a backup one, smaller than the previous one. They cleaned up the battlefield and brought the bodies of the enemies with them. Dragon and I Yun took Lu Li to the battleship. Soon, the battleship flew away. Brother Lu, it is all thanks to you. Otherwise, we would all be dead. Dragon and I Yun took Lu Li into the cabin and cupped his fists in gratitude. The arrogance in his eyes was gone, replaced by sincerity and gratitude. Let's not talk about this. I need to tend to my wounds first. Lu Li waved his hand. He took out some elixirs to treat his wounds. Dragon and I Yun nodded. He went out to protect Lu Li in case Shui Ruiyang and the others came back. Shui Ruiyang and the others didn't come back. Since they failed in one strike, they had to run away at once. Otherwise, when the powerful warriors of the Dragon and I Yun came back, they wouldn't be able to run away. The battleship flew fast and arrived at a small city after a day. Dragon and I Yun went down and brought back 100 warriors of the 4th tribulation. There weren't many powerful warriors in the small city. For the sake of safety, Dragon and I Yun asked the city master to send over 100 warriors of the 4th tribulation as escorts. The battleship moved on. 2 days later, they entered the Dragon and I Yun's territory. This time, Dragon and I Yun was a bit relieved. Behind a big city, another 5 warriors of the 5th tribulation boarded the battleship. At the same time, many scouts of the Dragon and I Yun started to track down Shui Ruiyang and the others. This time, Dragon and I Yun and Lu Li could put their minds at ease. With the 5 warriors of the 5th tribulation at the Dragon and I Yun's territory, if they were attacked again, the Dragon and I Yun would be useless. Lu Li started to cultivate to tend to his wounds. It wouldn't be long before they arrived at the Dragon and I Valley. His wounds were still serious. It was not good for him to meet people like this. He wanted to recover completely after they arrived at the Dragon and I Valley. Time passed by quickly. Sure enough, the journey was peaceful and there were no more problems. After 13 days, the warship came to a stop. Lu Li's wounds had been healed. He had changed into a white brocade robe. He was in high spirits, like an elegant young master. He walked out of the cabin and gazed into the opening of a valley in the distance. His eyes became misty. Chapter 2491. The Dragon Rebel Valley was a valley, but it might be the largest one at the entire Flying Fireland. This valley was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and there were 3 extremely towering peaks. There were many divine runes engraved on these 3 peaks. The divine patterns here had been built by generations of powerful warriors of the dragon rebel race. Now, the valley was powerful and horrifying. Nobody below the Emperor realm could break in. This was the boastful claim of the dragon rebel race. The valley had a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. There weren't many buildings because the dragon rebel race didn't have a large population. It was difficult for the dragon rebel race to procreate. Therefore, every member of the dragon rebel race was precious to the race. The death of any member would be a loss to the dragon rebel race. Up until now, the dragon rebel race itself had more than 100,000 people, which was less than the population of a small city. It was a super family that had existed for millions of years. Other families could easily have a population of more than 1 million. Apart from those guarding outside, the rest of the Dragon Rebel tribe lived in the Dragon Rebel Valley. The Dragon Rebel tribe was not allowed to go out unless there was an emergency. No marriages and no marriages. This was the rule of the Dragon Rebel race. For hundreds of years, nobody dared to violate it. The Dragon Rebel race had been keeping a low profile. Disciples of the Dragon Rebel race rarely went out to make trouble. Anyone that went out to make trouble would be punished severely once they were discovered. Locking them up for tens of thousands of years would be considered a light punishment. There were guards outside the Dragon Rebel Valley, a team of powerful warriors led by a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation Realm. The patrolling warriors were all from the Dragon Rebel race. Dragon Rebel Yun was a disciple of a branch family, but he was stopped and inspected when he wanted to enter the valley. Of course, he was bringing an outsider, Lu Li. Dragon Rebel Yun flew to the battleship with Lu Li and Lu Li to communicate. After a while, he came back and said, "Lu Li, we may have to wait. Our family rules are strict. Without the permission of our patriarchs, no outsider can go in." Understood. Lu Li waited quietly. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, the warrior of the Fifth Tribulation Realm came back and said, "Dragon Rebel Yun, you can bring the guest in now. You know the rules." "Yes, Commander Fei, I know." Dragon Rebel Yun nodded. Then he said to the 2 warriors at the later stage of the Fourth Tribulation Realm, "Little Gold, Little Shuang, come with me. The others wait outside. Little Lu, make the arrangements." There was a town outside the valley, probably to accommodate visitors from the outside. This time, some of the escorts were outsiders. Dragon Rebel Valley had strict rules, so these people were naturally not allowed to enter. Lu Li followed Dragon and Yun and the other 2 into the Dragon Rebel Valley. Looking at the valley from the outside, Lu Li could tell that it was like a paradise with flowers and no buildings. However, as soon as Lu Li stepped into the valley, he felt the view in front of him changed. What he saw was an illusion. The illusory array here was too powerful. He actually didn't feel anything. As soon as he went in, the first thing Lu Li noticed was the abundance of Xian Qi in the valley. As soon as he stepped in, he felt his pores were expanding. With every breath he took, he felt his divine energy was increasing. It was extremely comfortable. Lu Li paused for a moment and looked around. He dared not to use psychic power at will. They were all members of the Dragon Rebel race. If he angered the powerful warriors of this race, the consequences would be dire. What they saw was a square made of white jade. There was a giant statue of a burly man who had awakened the reverse dragon blood seal. He looked very domineering. This man must be the forefather of the Dragon Rebel race, the founding progenitor. Lu Li took a look and then looked around. There were 3 corridors made of white jade extending to the left, right, and back. Lu Li could see many palaces on the left and right sides. The style of the palaces was different from the ones outside, but they were simple and elegant. Pavilions, waterside pavilions, palaces, lush green trees, beautiful clusters of flowers, small bridges, flowing water. One had to say that this Dragon Rebel Valley was an exceptional place to live. It was like a fairyland, and one could forget all the troubles in the outside world while living here. Dragon and Yun led Lu Li to the corridor at the back. Along the way, he said, "Brother Lu, please don't use psychic power and don't do anything strange. The rules of our race are very strict. Please forgive me." Lu Li nodded and followed Dragon and Yun up the stairs. After a while, Luli saw some members of the Dragon Rebel race and passed by a huge drill ground. The drill ground was covered with a semi-transparent shield. Luli could see many young members of the Dragon Rebel race were fighting inside. Well, Luli saw some members of the Dragon Rebel race cultivating under trees, by the river, at the foot of the mountain, and in many other places. Luli seemed to be thinking about something. The Dragon Rebel race had a good ethos. The young disciples were diligent in cultivation. The atmosphere of learning martial arts was strong. In the Dragon Rebel Valley, they could not get out and could not get in touch with the outside world. Therefore, they would calm down and work hard to become powerful warriors. The Dragon Rebel race was one of the dominators of the Flying Fireland. As members of the Dragon Rebel race, it was in their nature to be proud and domineering. If they were not controlled, and they were allowed to run amok and indulge in debauchery, the Dragon Rebel race would soon become corrupted and degenerate. When a race indulged in pleasure and did not strive for progress, in less than thousands of years, the race would decline and eventually die out. Everyone was selfish. They had all kinds of desires, especially when they were young. If they were not controlled, they would learn bad things. The Dragon Rebel race had done a good job in this regard. This was also the reason why the Dragon Rebel race had been able to stand on this land for millions of years. On the way, Luli was thinking, if he could go back, should he follow the same model for the Lu family? It might be cruel for the young disciples of the Lu family, but it could help the Lu family go further. The Lu family was supported by him alone. Once he died, the Lu family would be destroyed sooner or later. If the system of the Dragon Rebel race could be implemented, the Lu family would have more powerful warriors. Even if something happened to Luli, the Lu family could continue to grow. While Luli was deep in thought, he noticed that Dragon Rebel Cloud had stopped. They were standing in front of a huge palace. In front of the palace, there were 3 characters, Hall of Patriarchs. Wait a minute. Dragon Rebel Cloud nodded to Luli and then went into the Hall of Patriarchs by himself. Luli and the other 2 Dragon Rebel race warriors waited quietly. After a while, some people passed by the Hall of Patriarchs. They were some young and pretty ladies. They were surprised to see Luli. Luli was only at the peak of the 3rd tribulation. How could he enter the Hall of Patriarchs? Was he a young master of a big family? Russell, 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 the young ladies walked away, whispering to each other. After a while, Dragon Rebel Cloud came out, cupped his fists, and said, Brother Lu, Patriarch Rain wants to see you. Well, Patriarch Rain is the 8th patriarch of our race, and he's in charge of external affairs. Phew, Luli took a deep breath and followed Dragon Rebel Cloud inside. Whether he could see Lu Ling or not would depend on his negotiation with Patriarch Rain. Chapter 2492. It was not one patriarch who received Lu Li, but 2. Dragon and I Yun showed Lu Li to a side chamber. Even though it was only a side chamber, it was luxurious and magnificent. Lu Li could feel the pressure in the room, suffocating him. 2 old men were sitting in the room. Both of them were wearing luxurious robes and were dignified. Just by sitting there, Lu Li felt 2 mountains were pressing down on him. Lu Li, this is our Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan. Dragon and I Yun first bowed with respect and then introduced them to Lu Li. He sent a message to Lu Li. Patriarch Shan is our 9th patriarch. He might have just arrived. Lu Li bowed with respect and said, Greetings, Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan. The 2 patriarchs were both at the peak of the 5th tribulation. After releasing the Dragon Reverse Blood Seal, they would be as powerful as lords of the 6th tribulation. Even the 3rd heaven, they would be the best. While Lu Li was observing the 2, they were observing him as well. Patriarch Ping had sent a message back and gave them a brief description of Lu Li. The 2 patriarchs were very interested in Lu Li. Patriarch Rain stroked his beard, waved his hand to let Dragon and I Yun go, and said, My friend, you are welcome. I heard that you are the successor of Emperor Z. Lu Li didn't hide anything. He told the truth, not really. Before Emperor Z's remnant soul disappeared, he didn't accept me as his protege. However, I obtained the Purple Emperor's body and comprehended the Purple Emperor's spinning dragon technique. I also have a good relationship with the Purple Emperor's subordinate, the King of Thousand Transformations. I also have a good relationship with the Yin clan. I can be considered half a successor. The dragon battling spell is a heaven-defying art. You were able to learn it, and you have a close relationship with the Yin family. You can indeed be counted as half an inheritor. Master Rain nodded slightly, then said, "Can you show me that bead?" Luli took out the yellow bead and threw it over. Patriarch Rain took it over and poured divine energy into it. The bead glowed, and some obscure patterns appeared on it. Just as I thought, Master Rain and Master Sean looked at each other, a hint of surprise in their eyes. Master Rain thought for a while and asked, "This bead was given to you by the Yin family?" "No." At this moment, Luli dared not to hide anything. He said, "Patriarch Hepping said I was from the Yin family. I was afraid that Patriarch Ping would not receive me. Actually, I brought this bead from a plane in the second heaven. The person who gave it to me is called the Great Demon King. She's a woman, and she's the strongest person in our plane. I wonder if the two elders have heard of her." Level 2, Great Demon King? A woman? The two elders looked at each other with confusion in their eyes. Master Rain thought for a while and said, "How about this? My friend Lu, you stay here for a while. We'll be right back." Luli nodded and sat down. Patriarch Rain asked a maid to serve tea and then left with Patriarch Sean. Luli sat quietly by himself. It seemed that the two patriarchs didn't know about the Great Demon King. Should he ask a great patriarch or a family patriarch? Luli waited for an hour before Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Sean came over. They looked more solemn. Seeing that Luli was about to stand up, Patriarch Rain waved his hand and said, "Luli, you don't have to be so polite. The person who asked you to come here is related to a patriarch of our family that has just passed away. You're on our side." "A patriarch that has passed away?" Luli frowned. How old was Patriarch Rain's patriarch? How could the Great Demon King be related to a patriarch of their family? Then the Great Demon King must be old as well. Judging from Patriarch Rain's tone, this patriarch might be a powerful warrior of the Lord Realm. How could the Great Demon King be related to a powerful warrior of the Lord Realm? Since he was related to a Lord rank powerhouse, was the Great Demon King also a warrior of the same rank? Luli could not figure it out. He could not tell how powerful the Great Demon King was. He nodded and said, "The Great Demon King asked me to trade half of the scripture with you. I wonder." "No problem." Patriarch Rain said frankly. Before a patriarch passed away, he said that if anyone has this bead, he must give the half of the scripture to that person. I don't think it's necessary. You can take the half of the scripture back with you. This is the will of our patriarch, and we cannot disobey it. Buzzing, Patriarch Rain shook his hand and threw the bead to Luli. Luli caught the bead and took a look. There was indeed half a volume of ancient scripture in it. The ancient scripture looked similar to the page he had. They should be of the same origin. Luli was relieved that he had finished his business with the Great Demon King. Now, there was only Lu Ling to deal with. He stood up, cupped his fists, and said, "Patriarch Rain, Patriarch Sean, I have a favor to ask." Patriarch Rain didn't change his expressions. He waved his hand and said, "Go ahead." Luli took out Lu Ling's portrait and walked over with respect. He handed it to Patriarch Rain and asked, "Have you seen this person?" Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Sean glanced over. They raised their eyebrows. Even though it was just a flash, it could not escape Lu Li's attention. Lu Li was delighted. They must have known Lu Ling, or else they wouldn't have reacted like this. They thought about it for a while, and their expressions returned to normal. Patriarch Rain looked up at Lu Li and asked, "Lu, why do you want to know about this person?" Patriarch Rain's words were not biased, and he didn't reveal anything. Lu Li thought about it and said, "This person is related to me. She once saved my life. I heard that she is at the Dragon Rebel Valley, so I want to meet her and thank her in person." "Save your life?" Master Rain and Master Sean exchanged a look, both showing a confused expression. Master Rain then asked, "Where did this man save you?" This question caught Lu Li's attention. Luli thought quickly and said, "At the Ziyang land." Master Rain and Master Shan looked at each other again. Their faces darkened. Almost without hesitation, Master Rain said, "I have seen this man once, but he is not from the Dragon Rebel clan." Yeah, Luli sensed that Patriarch Rain's tone had changed, and he was saying that Lu Ling was not from the Dragon Rebel race. Luli's heart was weighed down. He had a feeling that Patriarch Rain was lying. Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan's expressions and their words later told Lu Li that Patriarch Rain was lying and Lu Ling was definitely at the Dragon Rebel Valley. If Lu Ling was in the Dragon Rebel Valley, why would Patriarch Rain lie? Lu Li began to think about it. Patriarch Rain's attitude changed because he said he had met Lu Ling at the Ziyang land. Patriarch Rain thought he was lying? That was to say, Patriarch Rain knew Lu Ling very well. He believed that Lu Ling had never been at the Ziyang land and would not save anyone there. Luli could infer several things from this. Lu Ling was very important at the Dragon Rebel Valley. Patriarch Rain and the others thought highly of Lu Ling. Also, Lu Ling could not get in touch with outsiders. That was why Patriarch Rain wanted to protect her. Dragon Rebel Cloud said he had met Lu Ling once and at the back of the mountain. Had Lu Ling been under the protection of the Dragon Rebel race at the back of the mountain? Or was Lu Ling trapped at the back of the mountain? Many thoughts flashed across Lu Li's mind. Either way, Lu Li knew things were getting tricky. Patriarch Rain's attitude had changed. It would be hard to turn the situation around. No matter how hard it was, Lu Li could not give up. He bowed and said, "Patriarch Rain, Patriarch Shan, I don't mean anything special. I just want to see this lady. I only have this much strength, and I can't do anything in the Dragon Rebel Valley. Elders, please give me this opportunity for the sake of the great Demon King." Lu Li's attitude was sincere, and he had spoken. Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan looked at each other again. Their expressions didn't change for the better. Chapter 2493. Then where is she? Lu Li asked anxiously. Patriarch Rain, do you know where she is now? I don't know, Patriarch Rain said with a straight face. She is here with a guest. It has been so many years. How can I remember? Well, if you don't have anything else, let Dragon and I show you around the Dragon Rebel Valley and have a good time for a couple of days. With that said, Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan left through the corridor. They had no intention to talk to Lu Li any further. Their attitude was cold as well. They were not as warm and friendly as they were at the beginning. It was as if they were strangers. Rustle, 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 Dragon and I walked in. Seeing that Lu Li was still standing there in a daze, Dragon and I dragged Lu Li out. On their way, Dragon and I said, "Brother Lu, how did you upset Patriarch Rain?" Patriarch Rain answered Dragon and I coldly. Dragon and I asked Lu Li to show him around the Dragon Rebel Valley, and allowed Lu Li to stay here for 3 days. But Patriarch Rain told Dragon and I to keep an eye on Lu Li. He could not let Lu Li into the Dragon Rebel Valley. Patriarch Rain had told Dragon and I to keep an eye on Lu Li and not to let Lu Li in. As the successor of Emperor Z and a representative of the Yi family, Lu Li was a guest of the Dragon Rebel race. If it were not for the fact that Lu Li had offended Patriarch Rain wouldn't treat a guest like this. I didn't. Let's talk outside. Lu Li suppressed his anxiety. He could not let Dragon and I see anything wrong. Since he could not count on Patriarch Rain, then he had to count on Dragon and I Dragon and I was confused. He took Lu Li out. They walked around for a couple of miles and arrived at an area of palaces. Dragon and I said something to a team leader here and arranged for Lu Li to live in a castle. Dragon and I asked at once after Lu Li went into the castle, and a maid served him tea. "Brother Lu, what happened? The deal didn't go through?" "Yes." Lu Li didn't hide this. With that said, he activated the divine rune and said in a serious tone, "After the deal was done, I asked your patriarch about saving my young lady. Patriarch Rain didn't answer me and left directly." "That young lady? You mean the young lady called Dragon Rebel Antelope?" Dragon and I frowned, feeling confused. Elder Rain had turned against him just because he had asked about the dragon antelope's whereabouts. Luli was not here to take the man away. He just wanted to know what was going on. Dragon and Yin could not figure it out. Luli told him about his meeting with Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Sean, but he didn't say too much about the change of attitude of Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Sean. Patriarch Rain just left, unwilling to talk to Luli. Then this person is probably not a member of my clan, right? Dragon and Yin couldn't figure it out, but he didn't want to think about it. He waved his hand and said, "Since the Patriarch said he's not here, then don't ask. Brother Lu, stay here for 3 days. I'll arrange for someone to hold a welcoming dinner for you. You can go back after you've had your fun." "No." At this moment, Luli said with determination, "I can feel that the lady is among your people, and she is in that direction. This young lady left me a jade talisman, and I sensed it through it." Dragon and Yun was surprised. He looked to where Luli was pointing and murmured with confusion, "To the north. You mean she is at the back of the mountain?" "I don't know. I can only sense this direction," Luli said to himself with shame. He had lied. Dragon and Yun was the kind of person who was all brawn and no brains. If Dragon and Yun was scheming, then there was nothing Luli could do. Dragon and Yun touched his nose. Luli cupped his fists and said with a straight face, "Brother and Yun, I have a favor to ask of you. If you can do this for me, I will owe you my life. In the future, if you need my help, I will risk my life for you." With that said, Luli bowed to Dragon and Yun. He didn't stand up straight right away, but kept bowing. "Brother Lu, what are you doing?" Dragon and Yun helped Luli up. Dragon and Yun was not a schemer. He had completely accepted Luli as a friend and acknowledged Luli's abilities. Luli could have left right away when Shui Ruyang brought someone with him to ambush him, but he chose to stay and fight. Luli killed several warriors of the Fifth Tribulation Realm on his own at the cost of his own injuries. This was a big blow to Dragon and Yin. If it weren't for Luli, all of them would have died. As a matter of fact, Luli had saved their lives. Dragon and Yin was grateful and acknowledged Luli. After he helped Luli up, Dragon and Yin said, "Brother Lu, tell me what you want. I will try my best to help you as long as it is not too difficult." "It is difficult, but it is not difficult either," Luli said seriously. "I want to ask you to sneak me to the back of your mountain. I only want to see the Dragon and Yin once. I will leave right away, and I will not put you in a difficult position." "But no." Dragon and Yin only hesitated for the time, for one breath, before he refused decisively. He sounded very determined. Patriarch Rain had specifically told him to keep an eye on Luli and not let Luli enter the family grounds. Even without Patriarch Rain's reminder, Dragon and Yin wouldn't dare to take Luli to the back of the mountain. The back of the mountain was where patriarchs and great patriarchs lived. Outsiders could not go in. If Dragon and Yin dared to take Luli in, he would be discovered immediately, not to mention being severely punished. Seeing Luli's disappointment, Dragon and Yin explained, "Brother Lu, other things can be discussed. But please forgive me for not being able to help you in this matter. The back of the mountain is heavily guarded. It will be very difficult for me to take you in." But Luli's face turned gloomy. As a matter of fact, he knew very well that asking Dragon and Yin to take him to the back of the mountain was nonsense. If it were so easy to get into the back of the Dragon and Yin's mountain, the Dragon and Yin would have been wiped out a long time ago. Luli was suggesting something that was impossible, and then he had to settle for the next best thing. In this way, Dragon and Yin wouldn't be so conflicted. Alas, Dragon and Yin sighed in disappointment and said, "How about this? Brother Yin, you go to the back of the mountain, where you ask your friend to sneak in and help me find the Dragon and Yin. When you find her, ask her to come out and meet you. The back of the mountain is full of big shots, but there must be servants and maids to serve them, right?" Well, Dragon and Yin was still hesitating. If it were something else, it would be easy. But if they were discovered going to the back of the mountain, the family rules would not let them off easily. They would be locked up for at least 100 years. "Brother Yin, I beg you." Luli bowed again and then said with a pleading look, "How about this? You ask someone to find the dragon in I Yun and tell him that it is her business whether she can come out or not. Is that okay? If she doesn't want to come out and meet me, I won't say anything. But Dragon and I Yun made up his mind and said, Okay, I will help you. You have saved our lives. I will accept it, even if I have to be locked up for hundreds of years. But are you sure that she is really at the back of the mountain? I'm sure, Luli said with certainty. He didn't know the inside story, but he was sure that Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Shan's attitudes had changed. It was just that she didn't come out for some reason. Okay. Dragon and I Yin paced around in the room and said, Don't do anything rash for the next couple of days. Go and have fun in the Dragon and I Valley with me. I will send someone in. If she is really at the back of the mountain, I will send a message. If she is not there or she doesn't come out, then there is nothing I can do. Also, what message do you want me to send? Chapter 2494. The back of the mountain was a restricted area in the Dragon Rebel Valley. Apart from the family patriarch, great patriarch, and patriarchs, nobody else was allowed to go in without orders. That didn't mean that nobody could. The back of the mountain was large, and all the residents were important figures. The important figures would only deal with important matters. Servants and maids would take care of the trivial matters. There were many servants and maids at the back of the mountain, hundreds of them. They had undergone strict training and management. Once they made a mistake, they would be executed immediately. That being said, there would always be people who were not afraid of death. Some were not smart enough, and some couldn't resist the temptation. Dragon Rebellion secretly asked someone to make arrangements. It went well. He gave a maid 1,000,000 divine stones, and she agreed to deliver the message. For the maid, a message was not a big deal, not to mention that the person asking for her was a young master of the Dragon Rebel clan. She wouldn't have disobeyed even if she didn't have divine stones. That being said, this maid had never seen Lu Ling before. She had to go in and ask the other maids inside. Dragon Rebel Yin showed Lu Li around the Dragon Rebel Valley. He arranged a banquet and invited some young masters and young ladies of the Dragon Rebel clan. There wasn't much to see. The places that could be visited were not important. There were only some beautiful sceneries and some strange places that seemed mysterious but didn't have many secrets. The Dragon Rebel Valley didn't allow outsiders to go to the really good places. Not even many people of the Dragon Rebel clan were qualified to go in. The banquet was held in an outdoor pavilion by a lake. More than a dozen young masters and young ladies of the Dragon Rebel clan came, but they were all from branches. Dragon Rebel Yun's young masters were not important enough, and there were no special instructions from his superiors. Therefore, none of the young masters of the immediate Dragon Rebel clan showed up. Those young masters and young ladies of the branch were proud. But for one thing, Dragon Rebel Yun was respected. For another, Lu Li did save warriors of the Dragon Rebel clan. Therefore, they were polite to him. They took turns to drink the special wine of the Dragon Rebel Valley, which had a high degree of alcohol. Lu Li couldn't force the wine out of him since there were so many people here. Fortunately, Lu Li's constitution was different from others. They took turns to drink, but Lu Li didn't get drunk. The young masters of the Dragon Rebel clan were convinced. They looked at Lu Li in a different light. They all humbled themselves and treated Lu Li with respect and affection. The party ended in the middle of the night. Lu Li went back to the castle. He was drunk, but he didn't go to sleep. Instead, he sat by himself and looked to the north. He had a vague feeling that Lu Ling was in the back of the mountain in the north. The feeling was very strong. The back of the mountain was not far from here. If Lu Li were to fly, he could get there in the time for one breath. In the time for one breath, he could see Lu Ling. So close, yet worlds apart. Being so close, yet unable to see each other was a very painful thing. Lu Li had traveled thousands of miles from the mortal world to the divinity, to the second heaven, and then to the third heaven. How much suffering had he gone through along the way? Lu Li had gone through so much to get to the Dragon Rebel Valley, but he could not see her. The next day, Dragon and I Yun took Lu Li to wander around in the Dragon Rebel Valley. They even paid a visit to the number one young master of the Dragon Rebel race, Dragon and I Yuan. He had just come out from closed-door cultivation a few days ago, and was already at the middle stage of the fifth tribulation. After releasing the inverse dragon blood seal, a mid-stage fifth tribulation cultivator's combat prowess would be comparable to a peak fifth tribulation cultivator. If they advanced further, their combat prowess would be comparable to a sixth tribulation cultivator. Dragon and I Yuan was less than 1,000 years old, a young man. He deserved to be the #1 young master of the Dragon Rebel race, to have such abilities at such a young age. But Dragon and I Yuan's attitude displeased Lu Li. His words were cold. Though he didn't say anything too extreme, Lu Li could feel the arrogance and contempt in his bones. Lu Li left after a short conversation. Since Dragon and I Yuan was looking down on him, why should he humiliate himself? Dragon and I Yun felt embarrassed as well. He left with Lu Li and invited him to a banquet at noon. "How is it going?" Lu Li asked after they went back to the castle after a good meal. Dragon and I Yun shook his head and said no news yet. I think they are still trying to find out about her. There are many places in the back of the mountain that are off limits. My men can only ask for help. She cannot go around looking for her. Okay. Lu Li nodded and waited patiently. It had been a day and a half. He had to stay in the Dragon Rebel Valley for that. If there was no news in that time, he would have to leave the valley and wait. The day passed quickly. Dragon and I Yun and Lu Li continued to wander around in the Dragon Rebel Valley. They got to know some young warriors of the Dragon Rebel race and visited many sites. Lu Li was not interested. He didn't go any further and went back to the castle to wait for news. Night fell, but there was still no news. Lu Li would leave the next day. He was getting more and more impatient. He wandered around the castle. Just now, he even had the urge to force his way into the back of the mountain. Calm down, calm down. He knew that if he dared to force his way into the back of the mountain, he would be killed right away without any suspense. He had nothing to do with the Dragon Rebel race. The higher-ups of the Dragon Rebel race didn't know him. He would be killed instantly if he tried to force his way in. Time moved on. At midnight, Dragon and I Yin finally came in. Lu Li stared at him. Dragon and I Yin was alarmed by Lu Li's stare. "How is it?" Lu Li walked over. Dragon and I Yin didn't answer. Instead, he activated the divine patterns in the room. Dragon and I Yin checked to make sure that nobody was watching. Then he said, "I found her. She is at the back of the mountain." Buzzing, Lu Li's eyes glowed and his cheeks became rosy. But when he saw Dragon and I Yun's expressions, his mind was weighed down. Dragon and I Yun was not in a good mood. Did it mean that the news later was not good? Then what is it? Dragon and I Yun touched his nose and said, "I sent someone to deliver the message to that young lady, but she didn't respond. She only said one thing. Who is Lu Li?" What? Lu Li's eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe it. How could Lu Ling ask who Lu Li was? Was this Lu Ling not his sister, or was she pretending not to know him? Lu Li took out the portrait and asked, "Brother Yun, did you show her the portrait? Are you sure it is this man?" "Yes." Dragon and I Yun said with certainty, "I gave her the portrait. The maid is sure that it is the man in the portrait. That man is in closed-door cultivation in a secret area at the back of the mountain. The maid risked a lot to get close to him. I can't be wrong." What? Lu Li didn't know what went wrong, but he was obviously disappointed. He murmured, "How can this be? Why?" "Okay." Dragon and I Yun patted Lu Li's shoulder and said, "Brother Lu, don't force her if she doesn't want to see you. There are plenty of fish in the sea. What is more, even if you can see her, it won't help. Girls of our race cannot be married to outsiders. Patriarch said that you can't marry into her family even if you want to. Have a good night, and I will send you away tomorrow." With that said, Dragon and I Yin didn't leave. Instead, he sat in the castle with his legs crossed. Clearly, he was afraid that Lu Li would take the risk and force his way into the back of the mountain. How can this be? How can this be? Chapter 2495. Lu Ling was at the back of the mountain, but Patriarch Yu and Patriarch Shan had lied. Why would they do that? Why didn't they let him meet Lu Ling? Lu Ling must know the meaning of the name Lu Li. But she asked who Lu Li was. There could only be two explanations. Either it was inconvenient for Lu Ling to see him, or her memory was sealed. Either way, given Lu Li's abilities, he could not see Lu Ling now. He could not do anything rash, which would bring harm to Dragon and I Yin. Lu Li forced himself to calm down. At least, he was happy to know that Lu Ling was here and that she was fine. Lu Li exhaled. After some thoughts, he said, "Brother Yin, can you bring that maid here? I want to ask her something." "Don't worry. I will not do anything rash." Dragon and I Yin opened his eyes. He walked out after some thoughts and asked someone to get the maid. Lu Li and Dragon and I Yin waited quietly. Lu Li was also trying to figure out a way to meet Lu Ling. He had gone through so many hardships and narrowly escaped death before he arrived at the Dragon and I Valley. Lu Ling was nearby. He would not like to go back with his tail between his legs. Also, to go back to the second heaven, he would have to cross the Silver Flames Sea and the Wind Continent. Who knew what could happen? What if he died on the way? He would not be able to rest in peace. Therefore, he would not go back without seeing Lu Ling. He would find a chance to meet her even if he had to stay at the Flying Fire Continent for a while. At dawn, the maid sneaked out. Lu Li took out the portrait and asked. The maid was sure that she was the one in the portrait. Lu Li then asked about Lu Ling. That young lady has been cultivating at the back of the mountain. The maid said, "I have never seen her before. I just asked a sister of mine about her. She has been cultivating in a secret realm at the back of the mountain for many years. Nobody disturbs her. Only that sister of mine goes there to serve her. That young lady doesn't talk. Apart from resting, she cultivates." The maid didn't know much, but she was sure of several things. Lu Ling was safe, and she was not suffering. She didn't wander around and had been staying in the secret realm. Lu Li was relieved. After the maid left, Lu Li sat with his legs crossed. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes and said, "Brother Yun, can you open the portal and send me to a place? Open the domain gate." Dragon and I Yun paused, thought for a while, and said, "It shouldn't be a big problem, right? As long as you don't go too far. If you want to open the spatial gate to go to Livefire City, the difficulty will be higher. I think you will need Elder Shan's approval." "No." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "I'm going to the Great Buddha Mountain. You know that, right?" "I know." Dragon and I Yin nodded and said, "That's the base camp of the Hua family. Why are you going there? Do you know the Hua family?" "Yes." Lu Li nodded but didn't explain too much. He just cupped his fists and said, "Brother Yun, thank you. That's no trouble at all." Dragon and I Yin waved his hand and said, "The Great Buddha Mountain is not far from here. I'll find a commander to arrange it. After all, you're our guest. It's not too much to ask." Dragon and I Yin went out to make arrangements. Lu Li waited quietly by himself. He was still unwilling to admit defeat, but he didn't dare to act rashly. Patriarch Yu and Patriarch Shan's attitudes had taught him one thing. The Dragon and I Yin wouldn't value Lu Li more because of the Asmodean Lord. If Lu Li dared to act rashly, the powerful warriors of the Dragon and I Yin would kill him without mercy. Therefore, there was only one way left for him, to seek help from Tian Yazi. Tian Yazi was the great patriarch of the Hua family. He had been trapped in the Cave of Ice for more than 10,000 years. It was a blessing in disguise. In terms of soul, he was very accomplished. When he recovered to his peak state, he might be able to compete with a quasi-emperor. The Hua family was born in one of the 27 forces. Tian Yazi had top-notch abilities. Tian Yazi could use a lot of power. Tian Yazi was nice to Lu Li. If Lu Li went to Tian Yazi for help, Tian Yazi would not say no. Lu Li didn't know many people at the Flying Fireland. Only Tian Yazi could help him. Dragon and I Yin came back after 2 hours. He told Lu Li that he had reported to the higher-ups and they agreed. But he needed half a day to prepare. Lu Li didn't wander around or do anything. He waited quietly. He knew that if he were to act rashly, Dragon and I Yin would be implicated. Dragon and I Yin was a man of brotherhood. He had done Lu Li a great favor. Lu Li would not hurt him. What was more, even if Lu Li were to do something rash, what could Dragon and I Yin do? Half a day passed by. Dragon and I Yin showed Lu Li to a yard where there were some warriors of the Fifth Tribulation. They had opened the space gates. Dragon and I Yin cupped his fist to Lu Li and said, "Brother Lu, have a pleasant journey. See you again if fate allows." Luli cupped his fists and said, Brother Yun, I owe you a big favor. If there is anything I can do for you in the future, I will not say no. Alas, Brother Lu. Dragon and Yun sighed, but said nothing. He just waved his hand. Luli dashed into the space gate. Then, the space gate slowly disappeared. Luli teleported away and vanished from the Dragon Rebel Valley. After Luli left, space trembled. Two people came out from the yard. They were Patriarch Rain and Patriarch Sean. Patriarch Rain waved his hand to let the warriors of the Fifth Tribulation leave. They looked at Dragon and Yun. Patriarch Rain asked, Is Luli doing anything strange these days? Dragon and Yun's heart skipped a beat. He thought the two patriarchs had learned about what he did, but it seemed that they didn't. Dragon and Yun thought about it and said, Nothing strange. He is just a bit disappointed, as if he has lost his soul. He is in a bad mood. Oh, I see. Patriarch Rain waved his hand. Dragon and Yun left at once. After he left, Patriarch Rain looked at Patriarch Sean and said, Will that kid blame us if he finds out about this? Even if he does, we have to do it. Patriarch Sean sighed coldly and said, We didn't make the decision. It was our family patriarch. Since he is a member of the Dragon and I clan, he must obey the interests of our clan. Our rules are above everything else. Alas, Patriarch Rain sighed and said, This is her fate. But that kid is a talent as well. He came up from the mortal world step by step and reached the Dragon and I Valley. It is a miracle. There are many talents. Patriarch Sean shook his head indifferently and said, There are many talented people in the world, but how many of them can stand at the peak? For our clan, all those below the Emperor realm are non-entities. If they are non-entities, then what is the difference between a stronger one and a weaker one? You know that he is cultivating the supreme divine body and is only at the peak of the third tribulation realm. Even if he has some attainments and soul power, how far can he go? That's true. Chapter 2496. 8 clans, 9 families, and 10 kings. The Dragon Rebel clan was one of the 8 major clans, and the Hua family was one of the 9. The Hua family was one of the 27 major forces. It was also an ancient noble family that had stood on this land for more than 500,000 years. The Great Buddha Mountain was the headquarters of the Hua family. If this mountain range was seen from the sky, it looked like a giant Buddha lying on the ground. That was why the mountain range was named the Great Buddha Mountain. The Great Buddha Mountain was a spiritual mountain, one of the treasured lands of the Flying Fire Continent. This mountain range had been managed by the Hua clan for hundreds of thousands of years, and it had long since become impenetrable. It was impossible for anyone to sneak in. The Hua clan did not have an emperor-level expert, but even an emperor-level expert would find it difficult to breach the Great Buddha Mountain. It was said that the Great Buddha Mountain itself had a natural formation, and the Hua family had a complete sacred emperor divine weapon, an extremely powerful one at that. With this sacred weapon and the strange formation of the Great Buddha Mountain, it would not be difficult for them to stop an emperor-level powerhouse. In history, there had also been emperor-level masters who had attacked Great Buddha Mountain, but in the end, they had returned in defeat. This was not a legend, but a true story. Because of this, the Hua family had been prosperous for a long time. The space under Great Buddha Mountain fluctuated slightly, alerting the soldiers outside Great Buddha Mountain. A group of soldiers and a Fifth Tribulation expert immediately surrounded it. A spatial gate appeared, and a white-haired young man rushed out. After that, the spatial gate closed. The people from the Hua clan glanced at them and frowned. They thought that an expert had come, but they didn't expect that a peak Third Tribulation cultivator would come. Who are you? The Fifth Tribulation expert flew over and asked, Which family are you from? Why have you come to Great Buddha Mountain? Luli realized that this was a warrior of the Fifth Tribulation, and he must be from Tian Yangzi's family. Luli became polite. He cupped his fists and said, I am Luli, and I am here to pay a visit to Master Tian Yangzi. Luli? Tian Yazi? The Fifth Tribulation expert blinked his eyes in confusion. Then he waved his hand and said, Are you in the wrong place? We don't have Senior Tion Yazi here. Luli was surprised. He thought he had made a mistake. He looked around and asked, "This is not the Great Buddha Mountain?" "Yes." The fifth tribulation expert waved his hand and said, "But we don't have Tion Yazi here. Go back to where you came from." With that said, the fifth tribulation warrior flew away. Luli was worried. He said at once, "Lord, wait." Luli wanted to go after this man. Several warriors took out their weapons and surrounded Luli. They stared at Luli with hostility. One of them shouted coldly, "Punk, are you courting death? Do you think the Great Buddha Mountain is a place where you can mess around?" Luli didn't dare to move. He was confused. Tion Yazi had clearly told him to find him at the Great Buddha Mountain. After such a long time, Tion Yazi should have returned long ago, right? Tion Yazi was an expert of the Hua clan. So why did the Hua clan say that there was no such person? Oh, right. Luli thought of something. Anya was a nickname. Maybe Anya named it himself? How could the Hua family not understand? "Everyone, don't attack. Wait for me." Luli cupped his fists and said. Then he stepped back and flew down. He took out a brush and paper and began to draw quickly. His drawing skills were good. With just a few strokes, a person could be vividly drawn on the paper. Luli's actions caught many people's attention. The two warriors of the fifth tribulation didn't fly away. They checked Luli with psychic power. When the person on Luli's paper became clearer and clearer, the warrior of the fifth tribulation was taken aback. He flew over, stood next to Luli, and asked, "Is this the Lord Tion Yazi you mentioned?" "Yes." Luli nodded and said, "Lord Tion Yazi told me to find him the Great Buddha Mountain. Why didn't you say so earlier?" The warrior of the fifth tribulation changed his attitude completely. He said with a smile, "You are talking about our cliff ancestor. His name is Huaya, not Tion Yazi. Are you sure you know him?" Luli nodded and said, "Why would I lie to you? Your cliff ancestor has just come back, right?" "Yes." On hearing Luli's words, the old man with 5 trials became more respectful. He knew that the news of Cliff Ancestor's return was blocked. Not many people in the family knew about it, and there was no news in the outside world. The fact that Luli knew about this meant that he might be related to Cliff Ancestor. "Wait here. I will go and report this," the warrior of the fifth tribulation said after some thoughts. But he also said solemnly, "My friend, this is not a joke. If you don't know Cliff Ancestor and the family comes after you, I can't run away." Luli said with a smile, "If your Cliff Ancestor says he doesn't know me, then you can kill me." Nobody would joke about their own lives. The warrior of the fifth tribulation nodded to Luli and rushed into the Great Buddha Mountain. Before he left, he sent a message to the warriors nearby, telling them to keep an eye on Luli and not to offend him. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, the old warrior came back. He came with not 1 warrior, but 3. 2 of them were at the peak of the fifth tribulation. Whoosh! The 3 of them dashed over and appeared in front of Luli. All the warriors nearby came over and saluted. "Greetings, 3rd Patriarch, 6th Patriarch." The warriors nearby were surprised. 3rd Patriarch and 6th Patriarch were here in person. Who was Luli? One had to know that the 3rd Elder and the 6th Elder were both extremely powerful elders in the clan, especially the 3rd Elder, whose power was only below the Great Elder. "I am Huadong. Nice to meet you, my friend." 3rd Patriarch greeted Luli with a warm smile. 6th Patriarch said with a smile as well, "I am Huayin. We are sorry that you have been wronged." "It's okay." Luli was reassured. Judging from the attitude of the Hua family, Tion Yazi must be reliable. He could use the power of the Hua family to find a way to meet Lu Ling. "My friend, please come with us." Dong extended his hand and said, "Cliff Ancestor is overjoyed to know that you are here. He has come out from cultivation to wait for you." "Okay. Thank you, Patriarchs." Luli cupped his fists and rushed into the Great Buddha Mountain with Huadong and Huayin. The warriors nearby looked at each other, speechless. Tion Yazi had been missing for more than 10,000 years. Many people couldn't remember him. However, Luli, who was only at the peak of the third tribulation, could be invited by two patriarchs in person. This made people's jaws drop. Could it be that Lu Li was the grandson of some emperor? The Great Buddha Mountain was magnificent. Lu Li flew on and saw many mountains down below. In many of the mountains were palaces. The Great Buddha Mountain was rich in spiritual qi. Therefore, the scenery was picturesque. The purple smoke lingered in the air, making it look like a fairyland. Flying past hundreds of mountains, Lu Li had attracted many people's attention. After all, he was able to fly with two patriarchs with real power. They introduced Lu Li along the way with smiles on their faces. Naturally, this caused quite a sensation at the Hua family. Lu Li looked at the mountains and rivers along the way. After the time for one incense stick to burn, he finally arrived at a magnificent mountain. The mountain was at the head of the Buddha. Ha ha ha, little Lu. As soon as Lu Li arrived at the mountain, he heard a laugh. Little Lu, you are finally here. I thought you wouldn't come to me. Chapter 2497. Tian Yazi's nickname was given to him by himself. His name was Huya. Huya's name was also very influential. He used to be the grand elder of the Hua family. However, Tian Yazi kept a low profile and cultivated in seclusion for many years before falling into the Ice Fiend lair. Most people in the Hua family only knew of the Cliff Ancestor, but they didn't know who Tian Yazi was. Tian Yazi's return delighted the Hua family, especially since Tian Yazi's strength had increased greatly. This made the Hua family even happier. However, Tian Yazi didn't like to keep a high profile, so the news of his return only spread within a small circle. Tian Yazi started closed-door cultivation as soon as he came back. But before that, he told third patriarch to wake him up as soon as Lu Li came. This third elder was Tian Yazi's descendant. Tian Yazi valued him so much, so how could he dare to look down on him? When he learned that Lu Li was here, he came out to greet him at once. The Hua clan's welcoming lineup was also very grand. There were more than 10 people standing behind Tian Yazi, and all of them were at the peak of the fifth tribulation. They were clearly elders of the Hua clan, and not just ordinary elders, but elders with real power. Lu Li flew down and bowed to Tian Yazi with respect. "Brother, greetings, lords." "Ha ha," Tian Yazi laughed and said, "Little Lu, you call me big brother, but you call my junior lord. This seniority is a bit messy." The elders of the Hua family were displeased to hear Lu Li call Tian Yazi big brother. But after Tian Yazi spoke, nobody dared to show any dissatisfaction. They even looked at Lu Li with respect. This cliff ancestor was already at the sixth tribulation before he disappeared. After disappearing for more than 10,000 years, his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. The few Grand Supreme Elders were somewhat respectful to him, and even the old patriarch was very polite to him. It must be known that the old patriarch was publicly recognized as the strongest person in the Hua family. Several elders had privately asked one of the Grand Elders how strong Tian Yazi was right now. The Grand Elder did not say it clearly. He only said that the only person in the clan who could contend against him was the old patriarch. In other words, Tian Yazi's combat prowess was currently ranked second in the Hua clan. This world respected the strong, and it was the same in the clan. Even though Lu Li was only at the peak of the third tribulation, nobody dared to belittle Lu Li given how serious Tian Yazi was. They would be polite to Lu Li even if he were a warrior of the second tribulation, not to mention a warrior at the peak of the third tribulation. Lu Li shook his head in embarrassment. Tian Yazi, on the other hand, took Lu Li's hand and walked inside. A banquet had been prepared. Tian Yazi led Lu Li to the seat of honor before he introduced the powerful warriors to Lu Li. This generation of the Hua family patriarch, Hua Yuan, the Hua family great elder, Hua Fei, the Hua family second elder, Hua Bo, the great patriarchs, and the family patriarch of the Hua family didn't come out. The fact that the current family patriarch and so many patriarchs of the Hua family were here to greet Lu Li was a great honor. Of course, to put it bluntly, they were doing Tian Yazi a favor. Tian Yazi's aura was very vigorous. His combat strength should have recovered by more than half, but it would still take some time for his life force to recover. The whole clan had top-notch divine medicine, so it was easy for them to recover. It was just a matter of time. Tian Yazi didn't mention what happened in the ice Denver. He only mentioned that Lu Li was his friend despite the difference in age. Tian Yazi was probably too embarrassed to say that he was saved by Lu Li. Of course, Lu Li didn't mention that, nor did he mention asking Tian Yazi for help. He just talked and laughed. What family warriors took turns to propose toasts. Lu Li was dizzy from all the drinking, but he managed to stay sober. They drank for 6 hours. In the end, Tian Yazi thought Lu Li was almost sober. He asked them to leave and found 2 maids to help Lu Li to a manor he lived in. Lu Li sobered up after he sat in the manor for a while and drank some tea. Tian Yazi looked at Lu Li with a smile and said, "Things didn't go well in the Dragon Rebel Valley?" Even though Lu Li was talking cheerfully and wittily just now, there was a trace of gloom lingering in his eyes. How could an experienced man like Tian Yazi not see it? "I know I can't hide it from you, big brother." Lu Li forced a smile. He looked lonely. He sighed and said, "It's just that I am not strong enough. Otherwise, I will turn the Dragon Rebel Valley upside down. You're still young. What's the hurry?" Tian Yazi waved his hand and said, "Go ahead. Now that you have come to me, I will help you as long as I can do it." Tian Yazi's words warmed Lu Li's heart. He stood up, bowed to Tian Yazi, and said, "Anyways, I will never forget your kindness. It's not that serious." Tian Yazi waved his hand to tell Lu Li to sit down. He asked, "What are the details?" "I have a sister. I told you before." Lu Li told Tian Yazi in detail, including his speculation. In the end, he begged, "Big brother, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to think of a way to take me to my sister." Tian Yazi was in deep thoughts. He didn't say anything for the time for 3 incense sticks to burn. Lu Li didn't dare to disturb him. He just looked at Tian Yazi with anticipation. "Your sister's soul and memory must have been sealed," Tian Yazi said with certainty. "Based on your situation, your sister is valued by the Dragon Rebel race. They don't want you to have anything to do with your sister. In other words, they don't want you to destroy your sister's mind. The Dragon Rebel race has always been averse to outsiders. You and your sister are close. If you meet her, it may affect her cultivation." So, Lu Li had thought about Tian Yazi's analysis. He knew that for the Dragon Rebel race, he was no different from an ant, even though he had some abilities now. They would not affect her cultivation for the sake of an ant. For them, the interest of the family was more important than anything else. Personal feelings could be put aside. "Big brother, is there nothing you can do?" Lu Li asked with anticipation. "Yes," Tian Yazi said. "We have spies in the whole family of the Dragon Rebel race. I will send someone to get some information. If you just want to meet her, it won't be difficult unless your sister stays at the Dragon Mountain forever. When she comes out, we will be informed. I will take you there in person. We can talk for hours, let alone meet her." Okay. Lu Li was a bit excited. Tian Yazi was here. Even if Lu Ling was protected by a warrior of the Sixth Tribulation, Tian Yazi could stop her easily and create a chance for Lu Li. But Lu Li soon thought of a problem. Lu Ling had been staying at the back of the mountain all these years, where she never came out and cultivated there for thousands of years. Could he be waiting? "Little Lu, don't worry." Chapter 2498. Lu Li stayed at the Hua family. The Hua family held several banquets. At first, it was the patriarchs of the Hua family. Later, it was the younger generation that invited Lu Li. All the younger generation of the Hua family came in splendid attire. The young masters and young ladies of the Hua family were very polite, even respectful. How could the family patriarchs and family patriarchs be so polite? The top young ladies of the Hua family could not figure out why Lu Li, a warrior at the peak of the Third Tribulation, would be favored by Tian Yazi. That mysterious progenitor warrior didn't even look at them. The progenitor warrior was so arrogant that many patriarchs ignored him. How could he be friends with Lu Li? This attracted the attention of many young ladies. Some of them even flirted with Lu Li in a subtle way. Maybe they wanted to use Lu Li to climb up in the family and gain more attention and resources. Lu Li, on the other hand, was calm. Because of his relationship with Tian Yazi and the fact that the Hua family was nice to him, he was nice to the Hua family as well. He sincerely made friends with the younger generation. The most outstanding young master and young lady of the Hua family were both excellent. They had reached the later stage of the fifth tribulation and were less than 1,000 years old. Hui Wen, the most outstanding young lady of the Hua family, was engaged to the future family patriarch of another superfamily. Lu Li didn't hang out with the young ladies of the Hua family. After enjoying himself for a couple of days, he went back to Tian Yazi's manor to cultivate. He would always feel gloomy if he didn't see Lu Ling. He wouldn't be happy no matter what he did. Tian Yazi had made arrangements. Now he had to wait. Seeing that Lu Li was ready to cultivate, Tian Yazi said after some thoughts, "Little Lu, you could try to go through the second heaven tribulation. Your realm is too low. It is not a good thing." Heaven tribulation? Lu Li had never thought about it before. He was afraid that something might go wrong during the tribulation of mind and soul. What was more, he was strong in all aspects. He could only rely on his physical strength and soul attacks. Therefore, he didn't care about his realm. "I am afraid. I cannot." Lu Li told the truth. "I have a strong inner demon. I'm afraid something might go wrong." "You have me. What are you afraid of?" Tian Yazi rolled his eyes and said, "I'll personally protect you and give you some super divine herbs. Going through 2 heavenly tribulations will be a piece of cake. However, for the 5th heavenly tribulation, you will have to rely on yourself. The previous heavenly tribulations are still very simple. Of course, if you have an emperor-level powerhouse to help you, you can easily overcome the 5th heavenly tribulation." Oh, Lu Li was taken aback. He asked with curiosity, "Heaven's tribulations can help? Ordinary people can't, but I can." Tian Yazi said with a smile, "Have you forgotten that if I hadn't helped you in the ice demon lair, something would have happened to you?" Oh, Lu Li was excited. It was a good thing that he could survive the heaven tribulation. Every time he went through a heaven tribulation, his abilities could be improved. At the very least, his physical body could be transformed. "You cultivate for a period of time first. I'll get someone to make arrangements." Tian Yazi waved his hand and left. He was grateful to Lu Li, and they got along well. They were friends despite the difference in age. Lu Li had made it to the 3rd heaven from the mortal world, and he had learned the dragon skill from Emperor Z. Therefore, Tian Yazi had high hopes for Lu Li. Maybe, with proper training, Lu Li could become a black dragon and ascend to the 9th heaven. Lu Li focused on cultivation, trying to forget about Lu Ling and settle his mind. A month later, Tian Yazi sent a message saying that everything was ready and Lu Li could go through the heaven tribulation at any time. Lu Li stopped cultivating. Now that Tian Yazi was here, he had nothing to worry about. He went to the tribulation platform with Tian Yazi. A big family like the Hua family naturally had one. The Hua family's tribulation platform was more powerful. There were powerful divine patterns and formations inside that could weaken the power of the heaven tribulation. Lu Li went up calmly and nodded to Tian Yazi. Tian Yazi had someone activate the divine patterns to guide the heaven tribulation. The first few levels of the heaven tribulation posed no pressure to Lu Li. His physical body was so strong that the flames and thunderbolts were like tickles to him. They couldn't hurt him. The tribulation of demons of mind was what worried Lu Li the most. But every time he was in danger, Tian Yazi would give him pellets, and the thunderbolts that would explode in his soul would wake Lu Li up. The tribulation of demons of mind was more daunting than dangerous. The next tribulation of chaos was not difficult. An hour later, Lu Li successfully passed the 3rd heaven tribulation and reached the 3rd tribulation realm. Even though he had passed the 3rd tribulation, Lu Li's chi and energy didn't change much. He was still at the peak of the 3rd tribulation, which surprised the onlookers. Those who were observant noticed that it was the 3rd heaven tribulation, which shocked them even more. Lu Li used to be a warrior of the 2nd tribulation. How could a warrior of the Second Tribulation be so loved by Tian-Yazi? Was Luli an illegitimate son of Tian-Yazi? Little Lu, cultivate for a year or two. I think you can pass the fourth heaven tribulation right away. Tian-Yazi nodded with satisfaction. After the fourth heaven tribulation, Luli's overall abilities would be improved. If he could improve his soul, his comprehensive abilities would be comparable to a warrior of the fifth tribulation. For the entire third heaven, the fifth tribulation was nothing. But Luli was still young. Who could be sure of the future? Once his comprehensive abilities could be comparable to a warrior of the sixth tribulation, he would be the most powerful warrior of the continent. There were only so many great Emperor Realm warriors. Luli might not reach the great Emperor Realm in the end, but as long as he could fight a warrior of the sixth tribulation, he would be a powerful warrior that could look down upon others. Whether Li joined the Hua family or not, the Hua family would benefit from him. Li started closed-door cultivation as soon as he passed the third tribulation. The Hua family had taken actions. Now, it was up to Lu Ling to leave the Dragon Rebel Valley. If she could, then given Tian-Yazi's abilities, it would not be difficult for him to meet Lu Ling. Li cultivated to stabilize his realm and studied the heaven armor skill at the same time. He had only scratched the surface of this powerful skill. He could only build one layer of defense. If he could build 3 layers of defense, his defensive abilities would be greatly enhanced. Time flew by. Soon a year had passed. The 4 forces were still fighting. That being said, the intensity of the fights had been reduced recently. The 4 forces might be in the mood to talk. The interests of the 4 families would be harmed if the fight went on. Luli's realm was stable after a year of closed-door cultivation. He had reached the peak of the third tribulation in terms of divine energy, body, and soul. He planned to cultivate for another 2 or 3 years to reach the fourth tribulation directly. With Tian-Yazi's help, it should not be difficult. Luli had been in closed-door cultivation since he had not mastered the heaven armor skill. The Hua family had quieted down as well. Many people had forgotten about Luli. Tian-Yazi had also been in seclusion this entire time. Those 10,000 years had taken a huge toll on his vital energy. If he wanted to replenish it, he would need at least a few years. There had been no news from the Dragon Rebel Valley. Li and Tian-Yazi had to keep waiting. Another 2 years had passed. Finally, there was some movement from the Dragon Rebel Valley. It was not that Lu Ling had come out. Something big had happened that attracted all the powerful warriors of the Dragon Rebel race. Chapter 2499. That peerless treasure ground was located at the border of the 4 major powers. That was why the 4 major powers were fighting over it. Nobody dared to give way. The 4 major powers had fought for so many years and lost so many people. Naturally, they wouldn't give up. Now that an immortal emperor wanted to force his way in, the 4 major powers naturally wouldn't agree. This immortal emperor was very unfamiliar. He wasn't from the soaring fire continent. The 4 major powers didn't have any misgivings. 2 out of the 4 major powers had emperor-ranked experts. Also, after receiving the news, the emperor-ranked experts of the 2 major powers silently made their move. If this immortal emperor wanted to force his way in, the 4 major powers could only act to stop him. This entrance was jointly sealed by the divine inscriptions experts of the 4 major powers. After the immortal emperor arrived at the entrance, he didn't forcefully break the formation. He only stated clearly that he wanted to enter and let the 4 major powers report it. After the experts of the 4 major powers went over, they didn't act directly, nor were they overbearing. They only tried to reason with the immortal emperor. That emperor-class expert looked very young and very handsome. He had a head of elegant green hair and looked like a great emperor of a special race. He looked like a demon emperor. His words weren't very tyrannical. He only stated that he wanted to enter and wouldn't touch any of the treasures inside. The words of an immortal emperor had a certain degree of credibility. However, this treasure ground was considered to be their private property. How could they give it up so easily? Their men hadn't even finished scouting. If they allowed an immortal emperor to enter, who knew what would happen? After a series of negotiations, the handsome immortal emperor became somewhat irritated and directly issued a challenge. He could sense that there were two immortal emperors in the vicinity. He stated clearly that if he won, they would let him in. If he lost, he would leave immediately. Emperor-ranked experts all had their own pride. Since the green-haired immortal emperor issued a challenge, the two immortal emperors naturally wouldn't back down. The green-haired immortal emperor flew away and went to a place with the other two immortal emperors. They didn't fight with force, they chose to fight with words. It wasn't easy to cultivate to the immortal emperor realm. If it wasn't a life and death enmity, there was naturally no need for them to fight to the death. No one knew the exact details. In the end, the two immortal emperors agreed to let the green-haired immortal emperor in. The two thearchs even discussed with the other two factions. Eventually, they opened up the divine rune barrier and allowed the green-haired demonic thearch to enter. At the same time, the higher-ups of the four great clans discussed and prepared to send people in immediately. Although the green-haired demon, the arch, said that he wouldn't destroy anything inside or take away any treasures, the four major forces were still worried and were preparing to send people inside immediately. Luli stopped cultivating after he learned the news. He had been waiting for more information. 7 days later, Tion Yazi finally sent news. Little Lu, good news. The four major forces have made their move. Tion Yazi walked into Lu Li's castle happily. He poured himself a cup of tea, took a sip, and said, "The unknown demon king has gone in. The four forces cannot sit still any longer. Under the coordination of the two emperors, the four forces have decided to send someone in. The four forces will each send out two teams. One will be a team of experts and will probably send out Lord Realm experts. A group of old guys will follow the nameless demon Arch to explore the deepest part of the mystic realm. The other team will send out young people to explore the periphery of the mystic realm. Now, let's see if your sister will come out." "All right." Li's eyes lit up. If she didn't come out, not even Tion Yazi could do anything. Asking Tion Yazi to force his way into the Dragon Rebel Valley? Tion Yazi hadn't reached the Emperor realm yet. Even if he was, he wouldn't be able to. The Dragon Rebel race had a strong foundation. But Tion Yazi pulled a long face and said, "This time, the Dragon Rebel race will send out many powerful warriors. I am afraid that your sister will be with a group of Lord Realm warriors. That will be troublesome. Well, it is too early to say. Let's see if your sister will come out first." "Okay." Luli nodded and then asked with curiosity, "The nameless demon, the Arch? Haven't you investigated the background of that Overlord ranker yet?" "No." Tion Yazi shook his head and said, "This Emperor Realm warrior seems to have come out of nowhere. There is no information about him before. He must be a new Emperor Realm warrior. But this nameless demon, the Arch, is really strong. He defeated 2 Emperor Realm warriors on his own. His power is unpredictable. I think his name will be spread across the third heaven soon. He has just become an Emperor Realm warrior, and he has defeated 2 Emperor Realm warriors who have been famous for a long time." Luli exclaimed to himself. A man like this was the real supreme being. More importantly, this man didn't have any reputation before. Nobody knew where he came from. "Little Lu, don't worry." Tion Yazi patted Li's shoulder and left. He said, "As long as your sister comes out, I will find a way for you and your sister to meet." "Thank you, brother." Li cupped his fists and went back to cultivation. It was pointless for him to worry now. If Lu Ling didn't come out, then it would be pointless. But if she did, then everything would be fine. Soon, the negotiation of the 4 forces came to an end. Each of them sent out 50 warriors, 20 powerful ones, and 30 young ones. It was agreed that those who went in could not act rashly, or the other 3 forces would attack them together. Of course, an agreement was an agreement. The feud between the 4 forces was too deep to be resolved easily. Any small thing could be a fuse that could lead to a war. Spies of the Hua family began to take action. From various clues, they could tell who the Dragon Rebel race would send out this time. The Hua family had a maid inside the mountain behind the Dragon Rebel race. The information was confirmed in 2 days. Lu Ling was out. Upon receiving the news, Tian Yazi sent someone to inform Lu Li at once. He had made arrangements and asked Lu Li to get ready. Tomorrow, Tian Yazi would open the space gate and take Lu Li to the Yuding Mountain. The Yuding Mountain was where the entrance to the treasured land was. What did Lu Li have to prepare for? He was on tenterhooks when he got the news. He paced up and down in the castle for an entire night. Only at dawn did he manage to calm himself down and sit with his legs crossed for a while. Late in the morning, Tian Yazi came. Seeing how nervous Lu Li was, Tian Yazi said with a smile, "Little Lu, you are not calm enough. To achieve great things, you must have a calm mind. You must deal with everything calmly, especially when you're fighting against powerful warriors. If you're not calm enough, you will be the one to die." "Yes, brother, I understand." Lu Li took a deep breath to calm himself down. Tian Yazi waved his hand and left with Lu Li. They arrived at a castle where several patriarchs were waiting. As they arrived, third patriarch ordered to open the space gate. "Let's go." Chapter 2500. The Yuting Mountain was large. It used to be a lawless area and a chaotic area. Many powerful warriors claimed the mountain as their king. Killing and looting were common occurrences here. There was a cave of demons here that nobody dared to go near. However, one time, a powerful warrior accidentally fell into the cave of demons. For some reason, the cave of demons changed. It started to spit fire and turned into a volcano. Naturally, the change here caught many people's attention. Since it was no longer the cave of demons, it shouldn't be too dangerous to go in. As a result, some daring people went in and found that there was an entrance below. After entering through the entrance, they found a peerless treasure land inside and brought out many treasures from inside. According to the rumors, this peerless treasure land might be a treasure land used by an ancient sacred emperor to cultivate. This treasure land had been sealed in the past. Perhaps something had happened in the ice demon lair, which opened the seal and exposed it. As soon as the land of treasures appeared, the four forces began to fight for it. At first, the most powerful warriors of each force showed up. In the end, for fear of a deadly fight, the most powerful warriors of the four forces didn't take any actions. They just set up seals and were ready to negotiate. However, as they talked, they started to fight. Gradually, the situation turned into what it was now. Lu Li and Tian Yazi opened the space door. They didn't go into the Yuting Mountain directly. Instead, they stayed in the outer area. Even so, they were spotted by some scouts as soon as they came out. Lu Li sent some scouts nearby. Killing intent rose in his eyes. He was ready to take action. Tian Yazi waved his hand. His body flickered, and he spun around a few of the scouts, knocking them unconscious. "Let's go." Tian Yazi led Lu Li into the mountain. Lu Li looked at the fainted ones in surprise. Tian Yazi explained, "Don't worry. I have erased their memories. They don't know we have been here." "Amazing, this is amazing." Lu Li gave him a thumbs up. He didn't even see what Tian Yazi did. He just waved his hand, and he could erase their memories. This was amazing. Along the way, Lu Li used the trace of Tao to sense. Tian Yazi was surprised. He glanced at Lu Li and said, "Well, punk, what is this? Your divine telekinesis is very special." Lu Li didn't expect that Tian Yazi could sense it when he used the trace of Tao. With a look of admiration on his face, he sighed and said, "Big brother, you're too awesome. Even my little tricks can't hide from your eyes." "Ha ha ha." Tian Yazi laughed and said, "Are you praising me or you, brat? Don't forget, I have some attainments in the aspect of souls. Ordinary lords shouldn't be able to sense you secretly probing them." "Not bad." It was very rare to get a "not bad" from Tian Yazi. Tian Yazi's vision was very high, and ordinary little tricks couldn't compare to his discerning eyes. Tian Yazi led Lu Li into the Yuting Mountain. He changed his route constantly. Lu Li didn't run into anyone along the way. Tian Yazi had to be convinced. However, with Tian Yazi's ability, even if there were 5 tribulation experts nearby, they probably wouldn't be able to sense Tian Yazi's spiritual will, right? An hour later, Tian Yazi stopped in a cave. He asked Lu Li to stay there then began to make arrangements. "Well, brother, you know about divine glyphs?" Luli exclaimed when he realized that Yazi knew about divine glyphs, and not just any divine glyphs, but rather abstruse ones. "I know something about all the old guys," Yazi said casually. "Over the years, I couldn't make any breakthroughs in my realm and could only study other things. Basically, warriors that can reach the level of lords are not weak in terms of divine glyphs. Divine glyphs are the patterns in heaven and earth. Sometimes, studying them for a long time can be helpful to cultivation." Luli nodded. When Yazi was done, Luli walked out of the cave. Looking from the outside, he didn't see any signs of divine glyphs. "Brother, if you don't mind, I will let my goblin have a look at your divine glyphs and learn from them." Luli couldn't help but ask as soon as he stepped into the cave. Yazi waved his hand. Luli let out Blood Fairy, who went to check for the time for 1 incense stick to burn. Then Blood Fairy said, "Master, this divine glyphs are good, but if I can modify them, they will be stronger." "Really?" Luli was excited. Maybe he wanted to show off his skills to Yazi. He conveyed Blood Fairy's message to Yazi. Yazi was interested as well. Waving his hand, Yazi said, "Sure. Tell your goblin to modify it. I want to see how strong it is." Blood Fairy set to work. In the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, she finished the modification. Yazi had been using psychic power. When Blood Fairy was done, he was shocked. A moment later, Yazi exclaimed in surprise, "Punk, where did you get this goblin? How can you be so good at divine glyphs?" After making some changes, the power of this illusory formation has increased by quite a bit. Aha! Blood Fairy was Li's goblin spirit. Li was happy that she could subdue Astral Wayfarer. He explained, "I got this goblin spirit from the mortal world. It has evolved many times, and it has been studying divine glyphs for many years. It is talented in this area, so it has some achievements." Good. Yazi nodded. "Train it well. If it can evolve, let it study for tens of thousands of years. Maybe it will reach a horrifying level in divine glyphs." "You are blessed." Luli grinned. He dropped the topic of Blood Fairy and asked, "Brother, are we just going to wait here?" "Yes," Yazi said confidently. "Don't worry. I have arranged everything." The Hua family is a big place. If they cannot do something like this, then this generation's chief steward is useless. We just have to wait here. When they have a clear picture, we will take action. The main thing is that many senior warriors of the Dragon Rebel race are on the move. Otherwise, I would have taken you there by force. "Yes, I understand." Luli nodded. Yazi was strong, but so were the powerful warriors of the Dragon Rebel race. What was more, Yazi was from the Hua family. If Yazi were to act recklessly, he could start a war between the Dragon Rebel race and the Hua family. Yazi was here to help. He would not jeopardize the interests of the Hua family for Li's sake. Yazi closed his eyes and began to meditate. Even though Li sat down with his legs crossed, he could not calm down. All he could think about was Lu Ling and how he would meet her. Time moved on. Half a day later, they heard some footsteps. Yazi opened his eyes and said, "Come in." Whoosh! A man rushed in. He bowed to Yazi, cupped his fists, and said, "Greetings, Master of Cliff." Then he nodded to Li. This man was a warrior of the 5th Tribulation. He should be from the intelligence department of the Hua family. Li stood up and bowed back. He was getting nervous. "Master Cliff, the warrior of the 5th Tribulation reported, the Dragon Rebel race is here. They are at the mountain of Easter Mountain, but things are not looking good. They had sent 5 Lord-level experts. Even the Flying Dragon Rebels had come. That young lady is here as well, but she is with the Dragon Rebel race." "Oh, the Dragon Rebel race?" Yazi's expressions grew solemn. Seeing that Li was looking at him, Yazi explained, "The Dragon Rebel race is a supreme warrior of the Dragon Rebel family. He reached the Quasi-Emperor realm tens of thousands of years ago. I am no match for him." Quasi-Emperor. Chapter 25:01. A quasi-emperor of the dragon rebel race was different from those of the other families. With the dragon rebel blood seal awakened, a quasi-emperor of the dragon rebel race could be much more powerful. They might not be as powerful as great emperors, but they could beat the quasi-emperors of the other families. Clearly, the dragon rebel race was here to take command. They could not enter that land of treasure, or else the other families would have to send their great emperors in. One warrior of the dragon rebel race could defeat 2 or 3 quasi-emperors. The other families would not send so many quasi-emperors in. If the dragon rebel race wanted to go in, they would be opposed by the other 3 families. The presence of the dragon rebel race here was a deterrent to the other 3 families not to act rashly. They could explore the land of treasure and avoid internal strife. If someone of the dragon rebel race was killed in there, then the dragon rebel race would go on a killing spree in anger. The other families didn't mind the presence of the dragon rebel race. 2 families had powerful warriors of the great emperor realm, and the other one had special resources as well. They were not afraid of great emperor realm warriors. However, the presence of the dragon rebel race here had troubled Lu Li and Tian Yazi. Tian Yazi had made it clear that he was no match for the dragon rebel race. Tian Yazi had great attainments in souls, and he was not afraid of average quasi-emperors. But the dragon rebel race was not an average quasi-emperor. They were powerful warriors that could be compared to great emperor realm warriors. Tian Yazi asked the chief of intelligence of the whole family to leave. He thought about it and said, "Little Lu, stay here. I will go and take a look." If Tian Yazi personally went to investigate, his intelligence would be more detailed and accurate than anyone else's. His soul was so powerful that if he went to investigate, even a 6 tribulation expert would have a hard time discovering it. Lu Li watched as Tian Yazi left. He didn't act rashly. He stayed in the cave quietly, but he could not calm himself down. Instead, he walked around in the cave, anxious like an ant on a hot pan. Time moved on. It was getting dark. Lu Li was getting more anxious. He didn't want Lu Ling and the others to go into that land of treasure. Then he wouldn't know what to do. He couldn't wait here forever, could he? Who knew how long he would have to wait? For an entire night, Lu Li had been walking around in the cave. Tian Yazi never came back, which made Lu Li more anxious. Lu Ling and the others would go in the next day. Warriors of the other 3 forces should be there as well. Xiao. At dawn, Tian Yazi finally came back. He didn't look so good when he came in, which made Lu Li's heart sink. 2 paths. Tian Yazi didn't beat around the bush. He said bluntly, "Your sister has been with the Dragon Rebel flying team, so I can't get close to her. I can't withstand the pressure from the Dragon Rebel flying team and create opportunities for you. They'll probably go in soon. I've analyzed it, and there are only 2 ways to go. Either you follow them into the treasure land, or you wait for your sister to come out." Follow us in? Lu Li was taken aback. Follow him into that land of treasures? Could he get in? Once he entered, it would be filled with people from the 4 major forces. Wouldn't he be slapped to death by the people from the 4 major forces? One had to know that the 4 major powers had sent lords this time. Sensing that Lu Li was worried, Tian Yazi explained, "The 4 forces will go in 2 batches. The old guys will go in together. The young ones will go in after they have been in there for a while. I have a pellet that can make you invisible for a while. I will come out to distract the attention of the people outside, and you can sneak in. As long as I attract the attention of the Lord-class powerhouse, I'm 80% sure that you won't be noticed." There is such a miraculous pellet? Lu Li was shocked, but he remembered that he had an armor that could make him invisible. The 3rd heaven was full of miracles. It was understandable that there was such a pellet. "Yes, it's called Disguise Pellet." Tian Yazi nodded and said, "A good friend of mine gave it to me. If you want to buy one on the market, you won't be able to get it without 100 billion divine stones. I don't have many, just 3. Each of them can make you invisible for an hour." "I see." Lu Li nodded. Tian Yazi had thought of everything for him. The powerful warriors of the 4 forces would go in first, so they didn't have to worry about them. Lu Li would have to deal with the young ones on his own. There should be many powerful warriors among the young generation of the 4 forces. None of them were lords, but some were at the peak of the fifth tribulation. The Dragon Rebel family had such warriors, not to mention the other three forces. Dragon Rebel Yun was at the peak of the fourth tribulation. After he awakened the reverse dragon blood seal, he could be compared to the middle stage of the fifth tribulation. Dragon Rebel Yun was nothing in the Dragon Rebel family. The most important young master of the Dragon Rebel family, Dragon Rebel Yuan, was at the middle stage of the fifth tribulation. After he awakened the reverse dragon blood seal, he could be compared to warriors at the peak of the fifth tribulation. The four forces shared the same fame. The other forces must have warriors at the peak of the fifth tribulation as well. The 30 young people that went in this time must all be at the fifth tribulation. The four great forces all thought that this peerless treasure land was theirs, and it was theirs. Lu Li, as an outsider, will be hunted down by the young generation of the four forces once he was discovered. It'd be easy to go in, but difficult to get out. However, if he didn't go in, the Dragon Rebel Flying Army would still be there even if Lu Ling and the others came out. What if they build a formation here and open the space portal to go back to the Dragon Rebel Valley? Even if they didn't open the space portal, the Dragon Rebel Flying Army might lead a team back. If Lu Ling stayed with him, Tian Yazi wouldn't be able to take him to her. How about, seeing that Lu Li was hesitating, Tian Yazi said after some thoughts, "How about we wait here until they come out? If we don't have a chance, even if we come out, then we can go back to the Hua family to cultivate. You can cultivate for hundreds of years. Your sister can't stay in the back mountain of the Dragon Rebel Valley for the rest of her life. There will be a chance. I can't wait." Lu Li made up his mind after some thoughts. He decided to go into this land of treasure. Tian Yazi had 3 shaped concealment pellets, treasures that could save his life. What was more, Lu Li himself was strong in defense. He had almost mastered the heaven armor skill. His defense had improved a lot. Even if something were to happen, he should have a chance to run away. Lu Ling had become the devil in his heart. If he couldn't see her, he wouldn't be able to concentrate on cultivation for the next few years. Also, it would be dangerous to go into the land of treasure. Lu Li was still worried, even though he didn't know how powerful Lu Ling was. "I will go in." Lu Li made up his mind. Then he threw the yellow bead to Tian Yazi and said, "If I die in there, please send this to the second heaven for me and get it to a man called Devil King. Sorry for the trouble. This is not a big deal." Tian Yazi waved his hand and asked, "There are many universes in the second heaven. Which one did you come from?" "The southernmost part of the Ziyang land." As soon as Lu Li said it, Tian Yazi knew. He nodded and said, "I know which one." "All right, get ready. I'll attract their attention later, and you can directly follow behind that group of people and rush in. Be careful not to follow too closely and also not to wait too long. About half an incense stick of time after they enter is the most suitable time." "I know." Chapter 2502. The central area of the Yuding Mountain was very lively. There were tens of thousands of people gathered here, not only from the 4 factions, but also from the vassal families. Many people came because of the fame and wanted to hook up with the higher-ups of the 4 factions. Everyone who entered was already in place, and they would all enter in a moment. Many people from the vassal families were jealous and wanted to go in as well. But there were only 50 spots for the 4 factions. It would not be their turn. Actually, many people wanted to go in not for the treasures, but for the Saint Emperor's relic. It was said that there was a treasure land refined by a Saint Emperor. Since it was the residence of a Saint Emperor, there must be traces of his cultivation. Even a Lord-level expert would benefit greatly from comprehending a little bit. The 2 great emperors didn't show up, but many higher-ups of the various families came. The Lord of the Watercloud Hall was still here. It could be said that this exploration was very important. "It's done. Open the divine pattern." An expert flew into the air and shouted. 1 expert from each of the 4 factions flew out and shot divine power at a huge abyss. There were 4 divine pattern seals here, 1 for each faction. In order to go in, one had to break it by force, or the 4 factions had to open the divine patterns at the same time. Whoosh! As soon as the divine patterns were opened, flames and lava burst out from the abyss. It didn't look like an ice demon cave at all, but more like a silver flame volcano. "Let's go!" A deep roar rang out. Next, 20 people flew out from each of the 4 great mountains. These people's auras were like mountains. One of them was clearly a skinny little old man, but his aura felt like that of a huge dragon, causing many people in the vicinity to feel extremely stifled. The 60 of them disappeared in a flash and rushed into the volcano. The terrifying flames didn't pose any pressure to them, and they easily rushed in. After waiting for the 60 people to disappear into the cave, after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, an old man in midair shouted, "Kids, get ready to go in." Swish, 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 inside the 4 mountains, dozens of people rushed into the air. They were all young men and women in luxurious robes. Many of the men had imposing appearances, and the women were as beautiful as fairies. Born in a great clan, they grew up eating all kinds of divine medicines. Even if their looks were a little lacking, they could make up for it later on. There was no need to say much about the bearing of a great clan's disciple. Their bones were filled with nobility. As expected, most of the dozens of them were experts who had gone through 5 disasters. The Dragon Rebel clan had more experts who had gone through 4 disasters, but all of them were at the peak of 4 disasters. It should be noted that the Dragon Rebel tribe's combat capability would soar after they had awakened the inverse Dragon Blood Seal. That was to say, the Dragon Rebel tribe seemed to have more experts at the peak of the 4th tribulation, but in fact, their comprehensive capability surpassed that of the other 3 forces. "Go in, little dolls. Good luck." The old man waved his hand, and more than 100 people immediately rushed into the volcano. The flames in the volcano did not pose any pressure to them. Many of them either had defensive treasures or defensive sacred arts. Swish, swish, swish. It did not take long for the 100-plus people to disappear into the volcano. Meanwhile, the people from the 4 great powers were preparing to seal the entrance again. There were tens of thousands of people in the vicinity, and many of them wanted to fish in troubled waters. They couldn't possibly keep an eye on the entrance at all times. If someone rushed in, they couldn't possibly go in and chase after them, right? "Seal it," said the warrior of the Dragon Rebel clan in a deep voice after waiting for half an incense stick to burn. The divine power lit up in the hands of the 4, ready to dash in. Buzzing right at that moment, there was a sudden fluctuation in the air. Then a giant figure like a demon showed up. That person turned into a shadow and was about to dash into the entrance. The 4 standing in the air changed their expressions immediately. They all tried to stop that shadow. However, waves of air gushed out from that shadow and dashed toward the 4 like a tsunami. Bang, 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 bang. The 4 experts at the peak of 5 disasters were sent flying by the powerful air waves. All 5 of them were wounded. They were spitting up blood. Some of them even had their ribs broken. Wow, seeing that the shadow was about to dash into the mouth of the volcano, an uproar broke out. Although this black shadow looked like a phantom, who knew if the real body was also lurking inside? "Move. You are courting death. Get lost." Several angry voices came. Then several horrible attacks were launched from the 4 mountains at the same time, hitting the shadow instantly. Boom! The shadow was torn apart, but there was no corpse or blood coming out. At the same time, an unruly and creepy voice sounded. "TSK, TSK. Don't you 4 races think too highly of yourselves? Do you really think this is your home? I'm going to destroy him." Chi, a giant palm appeared in the air. The palm was shining with thunderbolts and black fog. It slammed at the entrance. The moment the palm slammed down, many people nearby felt that the sky was going to collapse. "How dare you?" This time, the experts from the 4 forces were enraged. If the entrance was destroyed, it would be hard for the people inside to come out, except for the nameless demon emperor. Boom! Several experts attacked at the same time and shattered the giant palm. However, it caused a strong impact. The people around were all sent flying. Some small mountains were even flattened. Dust billowed up, and the wind howled. Gravel flew everywhere. The horrible aura and murderous vibe filled the area. Many people nearby were terrified. "You are courting death. Kill him." Powerful warriors of the four forces were enraged. If they had reacted a bit slower, the entrance would have been destroyed. The consequences would be unimaginable. Countless people spread their divine wills, and soon they locked onto a black shadow. That person also turned into a black light and fled into the distance. You want to run? Go to hell. Powerful warriors of the four forces rushed over. What this man did was not only offensive, but a blatant provocation and humiliation to the four forces. Clearly, this man was a lord. But the Grand Master of the Palace of Watercloud of the Dragon Rebel clan was here. Why should they be afraid? Let's go. Lu Li, who had been sneaking over, flew toward the entrance as soon as he saw this. He had taken the shape of concealment pellet. The wind was blowing and the dust was rising. Powerful warriors of the four forces were out. This was the best time. As expected, Lu Li flew over slowly. Even though he caused some ripples in the wind, nobody paid attention to him. At this moment, his body had become completely transparent. Who would care about him in the billowing smoke? Tian Yazi had created a great opportunity for him. If a Six Trials Lord were to check with psychic power, he would have noticed something wrong. Now that everyone's attention was on Tian Yazi, nobody noticed someone sneaking into the entrance. Whoosh! Lu Li rushed down the volcano. The flames here posed no pressure to him. He went all the way to the bottom and saw a dark hole on the wall on the left. Okay. Chapter 25:03. For warriors at the third heaven, Saint Emperor had always been a mystery. It had been a long time since there was a Saint Emperor. The last one passed away over 1,000,000 years ago. Since then, nobody had reached the Saint Emperor realm. 1,000,000 years was a long time ago. Nobody had seen the last Saint Emperor. He was only recorded in the historical records of the major families. That man did exist. His descendants were still at the third heaven, and there was a Saint Emperor in the family. There were many pieces of holy weapons scattered in the world. It was proof that Saint Emperor did exist in the past. There were quite a few of them. Otherwise, how could there be so many? Many families still had intact holy weapons. How powerful were Saint Emperors? Why were there so many Saint Emperors in the ancient times? Why couldn't there be any Saint Emperor now? Why were there so many pieces of holy weapon? Could it be that many Saint Emperors were killed? Why would those above the fourth heaven collapse? What kind of earth-shattering event happened in this world in ancient times? These were all shocking mysteries to the people of the present. No one knew. Not even the ancient great clans were very clear about them. For example, the Dragon Rebel race had existed since the ancient times. But if you asked them what happened in the ancient times, they would not know either. There is no smoke without fire. It was said that this land of treasure was created by a Saint Emperor. There must be some basis for this, and it was highly possible. At least, that was what Lu Li thought when he came in. When he came in, he found the world was misty. A sense of desolation permeated the air. Lu Li could only describe this world in one word: mysterious. Lu Li could feel the mysterious air just by standing here. He tried to use psychic power, but realized that it was suppressed. He could not use it. He had to rely on his eyes to see. There was a faint mist all around. In this mystic realm, there was a faint purple light shining from above, turning all the mist purple. It gave people a dreamy feeling. Lu Li didn't move. He was still invisible. He used the trace of Tao to sense the surroundings. There was nothing but purple mist. Where are those people? Lu Li tried to sense the spatial ripples around him. There was no sign of any. Nobody was around. He was confused. He came in after the time for half an incense stick to burn. Did they leave as soon as they came in? Go! Lu Li picked a random direction and kept a low profile. He had been using the trace of the Great Path to sense the surroundings at all times. With the help of the trace of the Great Path, his senses were dozens of times keener. If someone was walking nearby, there would be a fluctuation in space, and Lu Li would be able to sense it at once. Psychic power could not be used in the secret realm, which was to Lu Li's advantage. Not everyone was as perceptive as he was. Blood Fairy. Go check to see if there's an illusory formation. After a while, Luli told Blood Fairy to use her tentacles. If there was a formation of illusion here, then it would be a waste of time. After a while, Blood Fairy answered, Master, I did not sense any divine patterns. I don't think there is any formation of heaven and earth. All right, Luli nodded. Without the formation of illusion, things would be easier. They would be able to get out of the purple haze. As he moved forward, he sensed his surroundings. They had been walking for more than 4 hours. Luli was not slow, but he was still in the purple haze area. He did not run into anyone along the way, which confused him. So many people had come in. Had they all vanished from the face of the earth? Those powerful warriors must have entered the deepest part of the secret realm. But where was the deepest part of the secret realm? Luli could not figure it out. It was said that the young man was exploring the outer area. How come he cannot see anyone? Luli pressed on. An hour later, the purple haze became weaker. Luli was cheered up. He checked to make sure that there was no one before he marched on. Ahead of him was a valley with 3 bridges leading to 3 tunnels. Luli frowned. The 3 bridges looked the same, and the 3 tunnels were winding. Luli could not tell where they led to. What? Luli noticed there was a piece of rock on the bridge in the middle. It must have been left behind by someone who went in. The older generation would not do this. It must have been left behind by the young. Let's go. Luli was not here to hunt for treasures or fortunes. He was here purely to see Lu Ling. Without any hesitation, he crossed the bridge in the middle and went after the young man. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as Luli set foot on the bridge, the sky above him suddenly trembled. Thunderbolts struck down, which startled Luli. Swish, swish, thunderbolts surrounded Luli. He sensed and was not afraid anymore. Strong as the thunderbolts were, they posed no threat to his physical strength. He could stand it easily. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderbolts kept striking down. Luli did not mind at all. He passed all the thunderbolts and crossed the bridge. Luli was not in a hurry. He asked Blood Fairy to scout ahead. If thunderbolts could appear on the bridge, then there must be some divine patterns on the path. Blood Fairy probed for a moment and said with certainty, Master, there are indeed divine glyphs on this road, and they are very strong ones. If Master is not in a hurry, I will take a closer look and see if I can avoid them easily. Okay, Luli was not in a hurry. Lu Ling and the others were the best of the young generation of the 4 forces. They all had their own skills and treasures. They should be fine in the periphery. After half an hour, Blood Fairy said, Master, there are no problems. Follow me, and you won't trigger the divine inscriptions. There should be a few checkpoints, but I can break them. Let's go. Blood Fairy was good to have. He did not have to worry too much about divine patterns. She could take care of them. Luli followed Blood Fairy. They took turns and swerved. Every now and then, he would jump. Sometimes, he had to climb along the walls. This netherworld path was very long, and there were many checkpoints in many places, blocking the way forward. But Blood Fairy did it easily. Luli did not have to exert much effort to pass through the path of tranquility. Gradually, the path became wider. A dark hall appeared. Luli used the trace of Tao to check. Suddenly, he felt his hair standing on end. In the hall in front of Luli were 12 black coffins lined up neatly in 3 rows. There was yellow hair growing out of the black coffins. Luli could feel a surge of evil chi coming from the coffins from afar, sending chills down his spine. What kind of demons are sealed in the coffins? Luli squinted. On the coffins, there was a faint glow of divine patterns. The demons must have been sealed. Otherwise, when Luli appeared here, the demons would have sensed the presence of humans and would have pounced on him. Did the powerful warriors of the 4 forces come from here? If they came in from here, why didn't they open the lid of the coffin to see what was going on? Luli could not figure out. He found this land of treasure more and more mysterious. Maybe this was a place where Saint Emperor refined treasures. Chapter 2504. Luli did not move around. He stayed here for a long time and asked Blood Fairy to check the corridor next to the 2 rows of coffins to see if there were any runes or if the runes would trigger the yellow-haired demon to come out and attack. It's okay. A moment later, Blood Fairy said, "There are no divine patterns in the middle corridor. But if those yellow-haired demons sense it, they may attack. Master, be careful." Okay. Luli nodded and moved forward slowly. He used the trace of Tao to sense the situation inside the coffins on both sides. Divine energy surged in his body. He was ready to dash forward at any time. 1 step, 10 steps, 100 steps. Luli had passed through the 2 coffins. Halfway through, the coffins on both sides showed no change. He was a bit relieved. However, when he passed through the first row of coffins and entered the middle of the second row, something unexpected happened. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All the coffins glowed at this moment. Many yellow hairs shot out like needles toward Luli. They were fast. There were so many yellow hairs that Luli could not dodge. Luli knew that he had to take the brunt of the attacks. He released Dragon Crossing and Heaven Armor at once to fend off the yellow hairs. At the same time, he took out the relic metal and was ready to attack at any time. Bang, bang, bang. It was as if countless needles were landing on Luli's body. There was a muffled sound as if rain was falling on a flagstone. Luli's defense was strong. The yellow hairs could not penetrate his body. Hoi! Luli began to attack as well. He swung the relic metal and smashed at the yellow hairs in front of him. The holy weapon fragment was horrifying. The yellow hairs in front of him were crushed. Without any hesitation, Luli dashed forward. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh from all sides, the yellow hairs kept coming. If it were not for the fact that Luli's defense was strong, he would have been riddled with holes. He was fast. He swung the relic metal and passed through the coffins. Soon, he arrived at the end of the hall. Luli stood in front of a door in the hall. The yellow hairs behind him had shrunk back. Luli touched his nose with lingering fear. He looked at the coffin with fear. Just a few hairs were already so terrifying. If the real body came out, how strong would it be? Would any one of them come out and kill him in one move? Whatever, let's go. Luli shook his head and walked towards the door. As soon as he stepped in, it was another long hall with dim light. Luli could barely make out what was going on inside. Luli looked around and noticed that there were some statues on both sides of the wall. These statues weren't particularly large. They were all half-orc monsters with sharp teeth and maces in their hands. They were twice the size of Luli and looked quite oppressive. Something's wrong. Luli took a few glances and realized something was wrong. He found some broken stone powder and some broken limbs. They were not of humans or beasts, but of stone statues. As expected, he looked around and saw that there were some empty spaces among the sculptures standing by the wall. He came to a realization. These statues were not statues, but puppets. These puppets could move and attack. The stone powder and broken arms that were smashed by the people who had entered before. Luli stopped using the dragon manipulation skill, but kept the heaven armor skill active. He moved forward slowly, but kept his eyes on the statues on both sides. Buzzing, when Luli passed through the first row of statues, the ones on both sides glowed. Then the ones on both sides came to life. The 2 puppets lowered their bodies, and the ground trembled. The 2 puppets rushed toward Luli in a blur and smashed at him with their huge maces. Hoi! Luli swung his fist. Since Lu Ling and the others could pass through, he believed that these puppets wouldn't be too strong. At least, they couldn't hurt him. Boom! His fist and the maces collided. Luli trembled, but the puppet was smashed away. Luli felt a bit of pain between his thumb and index finger, but it wasn't enough to injure him. Luli felt more confident. Move! He dashed forward. The rows of statues on both sides lit up, and many strong half-orcs dashed toward him. Luli released the dragon manipulation skill again. Relying on the heaven armor skill and his strong body, he withstood the attacks from all sides. He punched and knocked back the puppets one by one. At the same time, he moved forward quickly. Bang, 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 one puppet after another was smashed away. Luli's physical strength was not strong enough. He could only smash the puppets away, but he couldn't break them. Similarly, many maces landed on Luli, but they couldn't hurt him. He just felt a burning pain. He could easily withstand this level of attack, so it was very smooth for him to pass through it. The hall was long. Luli had been moving forward for the time, for half an incense stick to burn, and he still hadn't reached the end. He had run into more than 1,000 half-orc statues. It didn't matter how many statues there were. They couldn't hurt him anyway. Luli moved on. Gradually, the hall became smaller and became a corridor. But there were fewer statues, and they were gathered together in twos and threes. Luli sped up as well. He basically ignored the statues and dashed forward. The corridor began to turn, and he had to go around in circles. Luli didn't know how many half-orc statues he had run into. He didn't know how far he had gone. Finally, he reached the end of the corridor. There was a door in front of him. Whoosh! A group of half-orc statues caught up with him. Luli dashed in without hesitation and went through the door. After a flash of white light, Luli found himself in a cave. On both sides of the cave were dim bronze lamps. The path was winding, and Luli couldn't tell where it led to. Luli frowned. Wasn't this the mysterious area that Saint Emperor cultivated? How come it was like this? Why was the place where Saint Emperor lived so gloomy? Shouldn't the place where Saint Emperor lived be like a fairyland? Luli asked Blood Fairy to lead the way and check for any runes. After a while, Blood Fairy did not find anything. Luli followed her. He didn't dare to move too fast. He kept an eye on the surroundings. Even the golden-haired man and the statues could move and attack him. Even a blade of grass or a tree could be hurt. If he were careless, he wouldn't even know how he died. For the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli didn't run into any monsters. There was nothing in this gloomy tunnel apart from stones. Something is not right. As Luli walked on, he suddenly sensed something was not right. Up ahead, there was a thin layer of mist spreading out. Something must be going on. He was right. In the time for a few breaths, Luli sensed some shadows flashing by in the mist. They were like ghosts. The shadows hid well, and when they floated around, there was no fluctuation. Psychic power could not be used here as well. If it weren't for the fact that Luli had the trace of Tao, he wouldn't have sensed them so easily. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.